Chapter 773. Melinda did not know why. This was the person she was most afraid of, but when she heard him say that, she felt strangely at ease. Blushing, Melinda didn't have time to think about anything else when she felt a warm breath on her ear. Instinctively, she shrank her neck to avoid it, but Carter's hand was already on her face. He gently pulled her into his embrace, and the side of her face was pressed against his chest. His heart was beating wildly. He didn't know if it was because he was worried that he had accidentally hurt her, or because she was willing to be so close to him. He only knew that when he saw her blush, his body reacted faster than his brain. He wanted to hug her. He really just wanted to hug her. Melinda did not struggle or resist. She seemed to be in a daze and allowed Carter to hug her for a long time. Fei Rui was unhappy and wanted to separate them, but was held back by Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng shook her head lightly. "Isn't it good to have another reliable person to protect her with you?" Fei Rui was stunned for a moment. He carefully observed Carter's and Melinda's expressions before slowly withdrawing his strength and turning to leave. After hugging for a long time, Carter released Melinda. It was not that he had enough, but he did not dare to ask for more. He wanted to hug her and never let go. But if he hugged her any longer, she would angrily push him away. He was prepared to be scolded by Melinda, but his careful gaze met Melinda's momentary disappointment. Maybe she liked his hug. Stunned for a moment, Carter immediately hugged Melinda back into his arms. He would hug her like this until the end of time. However, Melinda had already regained her senses from that momentary chill. She pushed Carter away and walked to Gu Mengmeng's side. She pursed her lips and did not say a word. She hid behind Gu Mengmeng with her head lowered, clearly still resisting Carter. Gu Mengmeng pretended not to see anything. She pulled Melinda along and chatted happily. She helped Melinda put on the pearl earrings and sighed sincerely. He pulled Melinda to the beach and asked her to look at the reflection in the water to see if she was satisfied with the result. However, Melinda's eyes subconsciously peeked at Carter through the reflection in the water. Gu Mengmeng pulled Melinda back and pretended to be nonchalant. "Carter, what do you think of this earring? Are you a good match for Melinda?" Carter's eyes were still on Melinda's face. Meeting her cautious and expectant gaze, Carter smiled bashfully and dotingly. Very beautiful, very beautiful." Gu Mengmeng clearly saw that Melinda's face had turned red, but she refused to let it go. "Then is the earring prettier or Melinda prettier? You have to speak clearly." Kate's expression did not change. "Melinda is beautiful. She is the most beautiful female in the world. She is the essence of all things beautiful." Gu Mengmeng smiled and nodded, then pretended to sigh in pity. "What a pity, there's only one. If only I could find another pearl that looks exactly the same to make a pair." Carter did not say a word, but Gu Mengmeng recognized his expression. It was the expression Elvis and Leah had every time she said something unintentionally, and Elvis and Leah secretly remembered it. She believed that even if Carter had to turn the entire ocean upside down, he would definitely find another pearl that was exactly the same for Melinda. However, he would leave the future to time. Chapter 774. After resting for 2 days, Fei Rui and Carter brought their tribesmen to fetch Gu Mengmeng to the Forbidden Abyss on the morning of the 3rd day. Compared to the first time they entered the sea, it was a little more extravagant this time. Gu Mengmeng was wrapped up in Wabiai's snake tail, feeling like an emperor leading his officials on a tour with a divine beast. Although this divine beast looked like a piece of tea soaked in water, but she endured it. After all, there were many fishes behind them and it looked rather intimidating. Elvis and Leah also wanted to follow but were rejected by Gu Mengmeng. Although the mermaid tribe's air bubble could allow them to breathe underwater, if they met with any accident and the air bubble burst, they would definitely die at that depth. Moreover, even if the air bubble was fine, the water pressure at the bottom of the sea was also a serious problem. Beasts who lived on land for a long time would be half dead just by going down. Why was Gu Mengmeng fine? Nonsense, she had Snake's Beast King powers and the kiss of the beast deity from her lonely father. Of course she would be fine. When they neared the so-called Forbidden Abyss, Gu Mengmeng finally understood why Fei Rui said the messenger of the beast deity had to come personally. It was clearly a flowing sea, but it was filled with a thick layer of poison. It was as if the poison was continuously seeping out from the depths of the sea, so thick that even the sea could not melt it. Fei Rui and the rest swam to this point and could no longer go any nearer. Their expressions were solemn as if they were suffocating. Gu Mengmeng didn't want to force them, so she asked them to retreat. She and Wabiai could go down alone. Fei Rui was worried, but he also knew that with his powers, he would only cause more trouble if he went down. So he instructed Gu Mengmeng not to force herself, and to retreat if she felt something was wrong. She must not force herself. Gu Mengmeng made a reassuring gesture and asked them to retreat further and not be affected by the poison. Fei Rui and Carter said that they would meet her at the entrance and wait for her to come out. Gu Mengmeng didn't reject them. She just led Wabiai into the deepest part of the pitch-black darkness without any source of light. Gu Mengmeng had inherited Elvis's night vision, so her fear of the dark had already been reduced to its lowest point. But the absolute darkness and the absolute silence still gave her a creepy feeling of uneasiness. Gu Mengmeng instinctively grasped Wabiai's hand, but Wabiai said irritatingly, "Don't you know how strong your claws are? If you break my arm later, you can do it yourself if you encounter any danger." It had to be said that Wabiai's words effectively dispelled Gu Mengmeng's fear. That's right, in the entire beast world, she was already the strongest among the strong. If she met with any danger, she could just release her beast pressure and suppress it. If it was some kind of demon or ghost, didn't she have a lonely old man's father to back her up? F***ck, she had someone on top of her too, okay? He was a legitimate second-generation immortal. Because of Snake's tear of the beast deity, Gu Mengmeng's body was now immune to all poisons, because there was nothing more poisonous than the blood in her body. Fighting poison with poison, it was only natural that the weaker side would be completely devoured. However, Wabiai clearly did not possess such strength. The deeper he went, the denser the poisonous fog became. Wabiai was starting to feel a little powerless. Gu Mengmeng didn't want Wabiai in front of her, so she asked him to return and wait with Fei Rui and the rest. But Wabiai said, "If I leave you alone, you can forget about raising your head in front of him for the rest of your life." Digression, yeah, today's update is over. Chapter 775. Gu Mengmeng wanted to say that there was no need to compete in such a place. She had the protection of the kiss of the beast deity and her abilities were not affected in the water. Even without Wabiai, it would not be a big problem. But Gu Mengmeng also knew that males had their own pride and dignity. Sometimes, they would view certain things as more important than their own lives. She did not hesitate too much because any further hesitation would only cause Wabiai more pain and suffering. Nodding, Gu Mengmeng said, "If you can't hold on, go back immediately. I will not blame you and neither will Snake. On the contrary, if anything happens to you, I will not be able to answer to Snake." Wabiai tucked Gu Mengmeng under his armpit and charged into the abyss in his half-beast form. He raised his speed to the maximum, clearly wanting to end the battle as soon as possible. His tightly furrowed brows and a solemn expression that she had never seen before proved that his current condition was not optimistic. But he still gritted his teeth and said, "I don't need you to answer to him about my life." In the poisonous fog in the deep sea, there was nothing but flowing water. Wabiai's speed was so fast that Gu Mengmeng could only feel the poisonous fog whizzing past her ears. Her body was sinking rapidly. But how long did she sink? How deep and how far did she sink? How long did she sink? Gu Mengmeng could not be bothered. But when Wabiai's body finally stopped, Gu Mengmeng could clearly see that the scales on his tail had already been corroded by the poisonous fog, revealing the flesh underneath. There were also many festering spots on his chest. It was not fatal, but it was still a ghastly sight. Wabiai spat out a mouthful of saliva that was mixed with blood. He raised his hand to wipe it off and laughed as though he did not know his limits. "You want to compete in poison with me? In this life, only Snake is more poisonous than me." Seeing his stubborn look, Gu Mengmeng retracted her hand that was about to support him. Sometimes, she had to know how to hold back her pity to save a man's face. Gu Mengmeng smiled and patted the parts of Wabiai's body that were still intact. "Not bad, I thought you couldn't hold on any longer. Tiske, the only one who can kill me in this world has already been destroyed by you. Wabi said with unclear emotions before surveying the surroundings. The poisonous fog hovered above their heads like a thick, dark cloud, while the area under the poisonous fog was unbelievably clean. Gu Mengmeng consciously sucked in a mouthful of seawater and swallowed it, only to realize that it was not salty. In other words, the part under the poisonous fog was not seawater but freshwater, and it was the kind of freshwater that was similar to mineral water. This was very strange. Gu Mengmeng did not know what kind of topography would cause such a situation to occur. Could it be related to the poisonous fog? However, Gu Mengmeng did not have much interest in surveying the geography of the seabed. She just walked along the path that was paved with mud from the seabed. Speaking of which, it was very strange. There was clearly still water below, but there was no water flowing. It was clearly the same seabed mud, but there was a forest path that formed a sharp contrast with the mud beside it, as if it was guiding her forward. After taking 2 steps, Gu Mengmeng realized something was wrong. The speed at which her feet sank was getting faster and faster, but it was getting harder and harder to pull out. Underwater swamp? Gu Mengmeng frowned and wanted to swim across the sky. Chapter 776. Gu Mengmeng tried to walk around from the side of the small path, but she realized that the suction force from the side was stronger. She had just placed her feet lightly on the ground when there was already a force sucking her in, almost sucking her in. Wabi used his snake tail to lift Gu Mengmeng up onto his head. He had already transformed into his original form. The huge snake head was as big as a train and Gu Mengmeng sat on it stably. The thick snake body slithered along the path like a fish in water. Gu Mengmeng giggled. Luckily Wabi had insisted on coming down with her. Otherwise, she really didn't know how to get down. Little shit, I didn't expect you to be so reliable. Gu Mengmeng patted Wabi's head. Wabi stuck out his tongue and said to Gu Mengmeng in snake language, "If you call me little shit again, do you believe I won't throw you into the mud?" Gu Mengmeng shrugged. "I don't believe you." Wabi gritted his teeth and didn't reply. Because he didn't believe it either. Because of Wabi's cheat-like nature, they reached the end of the path after about half an hour. It was rather boring and nothing happened. Then, Gu Mengmeng was even more confused. The ocean behind them was like a huge water ball, rippling with water, but the light was blocked off. And the place they were at now was actually dry and filled with air. It was not an underwater cave or any other land. They were at the bottom of the ocean, but the ocean was behind them, as if there was an invisible wall of water blocking off the ocean. Not a single drop of water flowed in. Wabi had also transformed back into his human form. And the miraculous thing was that his injuries had actually healed. Not only that, Gu Mengmeng even felt that his skin had become better than before. She had heard that there was a sea mud face mask that was selling well, but she didn't expect the effects to be so good. Gu Mengmeng secretly decided that she would dig some up when she returned later. It would be good to give it to her friends and family as local specialties, right? Wabi also noticed the changes on his body, but he didn't take it to heart. He just urged Gu Mengmeng to hurry on. Not long after, Gu Mengmeng saw a huge clam shell. Yes, just a dried clam shell. As expected, not all demons and ghosts could live for more than 1,000 years. Gu Mengmeng went forward and wanted to pry open the clamshell to take a look. But the moment her hand touched the clamshell, it cracked and shattered into pieces. Was it eroded by the wind? Gu Mengmeng shrugged her shoulders helplessly. She pushed the shredded clamshell to one side and found a pearl the size of a fist. It was black and glowed with a dark green light. It was faint and gave off a mysterious vibe. Gu Mengmeng weighed it in her hand and looked around to see if there was anything else. She thought to herself, was this the kiss of the ocean? A black pearl? Chapter 777. Gu Mengmeng was stunned by the scene before her the moment she entered the poisonous fog from the freshwater. The poisonous mist swirled, and like the drain of a bathtub that had been opened, it gradually disappeared from the drain. And this drain was the black pearl in Gu Mengmeng's hand, the kiss of the ocean. What the heck? Don't judge a pearl by its cover. Gu Mingming stared in bewilderment as the poisonous fog swirled into a huge whirlpool like a tornado. Then, the thinnest part of the fog was rapidly sucked into the black pearl. She didn't know how to react. After a long while, when Gu Mingming regained her senses, the poisonous fog had already thinned to the point where she could vaguely see what was going on 3 to 5 meters away. Amidst the dilution of the seawater, there was a sense of ink-stained beauty. Gu Mingming thought about how Wabiai had to swim for half a day to bring her down. No matter how powerful the pearl was, it would take some time to absorb the fog. It would be too much of a waste of time to swim back after it was done. Not to mention Fei Rui and Carter, Elvis and Leah didn't know what was going on down there. Wouldn't they go crazy seeing her taking so long to return? So Gu Mingming leaned over to Wabiai and said, "Let's swim back as we swim. I don't think we can finish absorbing the fog in such a short time." Wabiai had originally come with Gu Mingming. He wasn't interested in the poisonous fog, nor the kiss of the ocean. So when he heard Gu Mingming's words, he nodded and held Gu Mingming under his arm as he swam back slowly. He even intentionally swam towards the areas with the thickest poisonous fog so that the pearl could absorb the fog faster. Before they could swim out of the poisonous fog, Gu Mingming smelled blood. She instinctively frowned. Could it be that the giant fish tribe and the mermaid tribe had gotten into a fight again? TK, why were these fish more aggressive than lions and tigers? Gu Mingming was worried that Fei Rui would be at a disadvantage, so she asked Wabiai to speed up. The closer they got, the more Gu Mingming felt that something was wrong. The sounds of fighting were rather loud. It didn't seem like something Fei Rui and Carter could create. After all, with Fei Rui's small physique, he was nothing in front of Kite. It was a one-sided abuse. It was impossible for him to cause such a ruckus. Furthermore, Carter still wanted to woo Melinda, so he couldn't kill Fei Rui. If he really beat Fei Rui up, then he could forget about developing a relationship with Melinda that was more than friendship in this lifetime. Gu Mingming choked on her saliva as she charged out of the poisonous fog. It was not a problem with the seawater, but the blood content of the seawater was too high. Gu Mingming almost doubted her own eyes. What was going on? Did he swim into the burial pit of the sea race? Why were there so many corpses of the sea race? Although they had been beaten back to their original forms and were just fish, Gu Mingming could clearly tell that they were not ordinary fish, but from the ocean tribe. But after returning to their original forms, Gu Mingming could not recognize any of them. The corpses of the sea folk were different from those of ordinary fish. When ordinary fish died, their corpses would float up, but the corpses of the sea folk would sink. After the poisonous fog thinned, the corpses would slowly sink into the poisonous fog. Their bodies were already wounded and they did not have a strong resistance to poison. As a result, even after 80% of the poisonous fog had been absorbed, their corpses continued to rot in the poisonous fog until not even their bones were left. Chapter 778. Wabiai led Gu Mingming and continued to swim upstream. They could already see people fighting. Huge waves surged beneath the surface of the sea. The battle between the sea tribes was even more brutal than that between the wild beasts on land. Gu Mingming tried her best to distinguish between friend and foe, and finally found Fei Rui and Carter under the guidance of that head of golden hair. At that moment, the two of them were being attacked by another member of the sea tribe. From the looks of it, that person should also be third level. It was hard to say who would win if he fought Carter head-on, but Carter had to deal with him while protecting Melinda at the same time. It was inevitable that he was being attacked from both sides. Gu Mingming quickly swam over and turned to protect Fei Rui and his sister behind her. She faced the enemy's attack head-on and smiled coldly. She didn't even raise her hand. The attacker didn't hesitate at all because of Gu Mingming's appearance. Not only did his movements not slow down, they even became fiercer. In just an instant, he adjusted his angles slightly. He was going to take Gu Mingming's life. However, before that sword-like nose could reach within 3 steps of Gu Mingming, it stopped abruptly. The attacker frowned and suddenly turned back to look. His heart skipped a beat and his face contorted in shock. Fear contorted his face and he didn't even have time to shout for help before half of his body was bitten off by Wabiai. Blood spread across the sea like a red spider lily blooming in the sea. It was demonic and strange, carrying with it a strong aura of death. It was so beautiful that it was suffocating. Wabi threw away the half-fish wrapped in his snake tail in disgust. Then he watched in disgust as it slowly sank into the poisonous fog of the abyss, gradually rotting and dissipating. Twisting his neck, he scanned the surroundings. That gaze was just like looking at food. Great messenger! Fei Rui grasped Melinda's hand and pushed her to Gu Mingming's side. Great messenger, please help me take care of my sister. If we all die here today, please bring her back to Saint Nazir. Even if she becomes partners with a land beast, it's fine as long as she survives. As he said that, Fei Rui glanced at Carter. Carter pursed his lips but didn't say a word. The other party had come prepared. They had concentrated their attacks on Melinda from the start, forcing him to stay by her side to protect her. He could only watch helplessly as his people were scattered by the other party and killed one by one. Now that the giant fish tribe had suffered heavy losses, it was doubtful if they could even survive to the end, much less protect Melinda. He wanted to have her, but compared to his own wish, her survival was more important. She was so beautiful and kind that no matter how vulgar the land orcs were, they would still take pity on her. If it was the tribe of the messenger of the beast deity, she would have a good life. Clenching his fists tightly, Carter slowly took a step forward, ready to fight. It was the sorrow and heroism of a warrior who would never return. But just as he took a step forward, his waist tightened. Melinda hugged Kate's waist from behind and said in a nasal voice, "I'm not leaving. I want to be with Kate. Even if we die together." Chapter 779. Carter and Melinda had no idea what Gu Mengmeng was saying. They only saw her gently nudge the three of them away from the battlefield, before instructing, "All members of the giant fish tribe and mermaid tribe, retreat behind your tribe leaders." As soon as he finished speaking, the scattered clansmen retreated in a sorry state. The enemies were intimidated by Wabi and didn't dare to move. They could only watch helplessly as they left. "Is there no one else on our side?" Gu Mingming turned back and asked. Carter scanned the surroundings and nodded. Gu Mingming smiled slyly. "Children, it's time to eat." As soon as he finished speaking, countless water snakes surged out from all directions and surrounded the battlefield. Then, they gradually tightened the encirclement and gathered the enemies again and again. Those who attempted to break out of the encirclement or escape would immediately be bitten by the agile water snakes for a second. In less than 3 seconds, they would no longer have the strength to struggle. Then, the water snakes would bite their heads and slowly swallow their entire bodies into their stomachs. The others didn't dare to escape anymore. They cowered and moved closer to the center. And in the center, waiting for them was the beast form Wabi. His bloody mouth was wide open, as if waiting for them to jump into his mouth. Retreat. There was no way out. There was a huge disparity in power. It was supposed to be a sure-win situation, but the moment that female appeared, the tables were turned. Damn it, when did these snakes appear? All the enemies were surrounded by the snakes like sardines in a can. With Wabi's mouth, he would probably finish them all in 2 mouthfuls. "Wait a minute." Gu Mingming chuckled and gestured for him to stop. The snake beast's encirclement stopped shrinking and Wabi also transformed back into his half-beast form out of boredom. He used his tail to sweep up the person who had just spoken and threw him in front of Gu Mingming. Fish in the water would never be in such a sorry state. Although he was thrown out, he still landed steadily in front of Gu Mingming. He straightened his body and looked rather arrogant. "Greetings, great messenger." Gu Mingming sized it up and chuckled. "Io, so there are stray beasts in the sea too." That person stood up straight. It was not strange that his identity as a stray beast had been exposed. After all, although his side had the numbers of a tribe, they were not united. On land, tribes lived together, but in the ocean, most tribes were united. Furthermore, the females in the tribe would not mate with outsiders to ensure the purity of the tribe's bloodline. This was also one of the reasons why Melinda was so resistant and evasive when Kate expressed her desire to woo her, even though she had saved Kate. Although the stray beasts are beastmen abandoned by the beast deity should not have sent the great messenger to kill us all, right? I wonder why the great emissary wants to interfere in our dispute today? That person was rather strong-willed. He didn't think that it was wrong for him to initiate a massacre. After all, this world was ruled by the strong, and it was the right thing to do. Gu Mengmeng smiled at the person in front of her. Of course the beast deity did not order me to kill you all. Otherwise, do you think you still have the chance to talk nonsense with me? Gu Mengmeng slowly and appropriately released a bit of pressure. It was very subtle and not a lot, but it was enough to make people shiver. The pressure of a beast king. That person gritted his teeth and lowered his head in submission. The reason was simply because he was submissive to the strong and had a deep-rooted fear of a superior. Aside from the topic, explain why there were clearly water snakes around but no one came out to rescue them just now. These water snakes were brought out by Wabiai. Since Wabiai did not say anything, Gu Mengmeng did not intend for them to appear from the start. After all, the sea tribe seemed to be very afraid of snakes. She did not want to create panic. Gu Mengmeng did not expect someone to attack her the moment she went down to retrieve a pearl, so she did not give the order to protect them. And snakes were cold-blooded by nature. To them, the life and death of others was just a trivial matter. They would not care. Chapter 780. There was still a bunch of weaklings behind her. After the previous battle with the stray beasts, Gu Mengmeng already knew the importance of controlling her emotions. She had been working hard to control her beast pressure over this period of time, and had achieved some success. Seeing that the person who came out to negotiate had given in, there was no need for her to continue pressuring him. After all, what if Melinda was scared to death before the stray beasts? As for why I want to interfere in your dispute, you have to ask yourself. Gu Mengmeng smiled condescendingly. Don't tell me that you stray beasts who have been banished by the various tribes just happened to meet them and wanted to exterminate them when you passed by. Why not? Stray beasts do not follow the rules. That person was a little guilty, but still forced himself to look calm. Gu Mengmeng replied with an, "Oh. So stray beasts do not follow the rules. All right then, let's leave the stray beasts to them to settle." Gu Mengmeng took a step forward and slapped that person's shoulder, sending him back into the water snake's encirclement. Gu Mengmeng's strength was so strong that even a fish could not resist the force. When he could barely steady himself, he felt a pain in his lower body before he could say another word. Turning his head, he realized that his lower body had already entered Wabiai's mouth. The snake's venomous eyes were vertical, emitting a chill that made one's entire body shiver. But he did not even have the chance to beg for mercy before he was swallowed into Wabiai's mouth and died. If it was in the past, Gu Mengmeng would definitely be a little afraid when faced with such a scene. But after inheriting Snake's memories, she was very clear on one thing. That was to be merciful to one's enemy was to be cruel to oneself. She had already heard the water snake's report. These stray beasts had planned to kill Carter, Fei Rui and the rest, then disguise themselves as them. When Gu Mengmeng emerged from the abyss, they would suddenly attack and snatch the kiss of the ocean. But they didn't expect a few things. Firstly, the poisonous fog didn't kill Wabiai, nor did it weaken Gu Mengmeng. Secondly, they underestimated Fei Rui, Carter and the rest. They didn't expect that they would rather risk their lives to stay here and provide support for Gu Mengmeng. They were clearly not powerful, but none of them tried to escape. If Gu Mengmeng came back later, looking at the less than 20 people left behind, Gu Mengmeng's heart was bleeding. How majestic was the scene when they arrived. In less than half a day, there were less than 20 people left. Gu Mengmeng hugged Fei Rui's arm and grinned. Our little shit looks ferocious when he eats. Don't scare Melinda. Let's return to the shore first. Fei Rui and Carter turned back to look at Wabiai. The absolute disparity in strength was on full display in front of him. The stray beasts that had been tearing at their tribesmen earlier were now coiled around Wabiai by the water snake. It was as if they had been sent to the dragon's pool and had lost all will to resist. There was only a desolate look on their faces, clearly waiting for death. Such a scene was not suitable for females to watch. Chapter 781. The moment she broke through the water, the ripples on the surface of the sea shattered the afterglow of the setting sun. The orange-red light shone on her body, making her look like a warrior returning from a blood-soaked battle, exuding an inexplicable sense of heroism. Elvis rushed to the shore and pulled Gu Mengmeng over from Fei Rue's hands. He used his chest to warm her up and scanned her body with his X-ray eyes. He only heaved a sigh of relief after confirming that she was unharmed from head to toe. Leah wrapped Gu Mengmeng up in a beast skin that was already warmed up. He looked up and did a head count. He frowned slightly but didn't ask anything. When they had left, there had been a huge crowd. But when they returned, there were only 2 or 3 of them left. Fei Rue and Carter were still bleeding, while Melinda looked haggard and there were over 20 people behind them. It was easy to guess what had happened without asking. Leah and Elvis were well aware of how much Gu Mengmeng valued human lives. They didn't want her to shoulder all these lives on her own. They observed Gu Mengmeng carefully. Seeing that she wasn't too affected, they felt a little more at ease. But what they didn't know was that Gu Mengmeng could already control her emotions well. It wasn't that she was numb to death, but because she knew that the dead were gone. She had to look forward, she had to be brave. Only then would the people around her not be affected by her depression. Think about how her emotions had tormented Elvis and Leah the last time. She had to love her own men. She couldn't possibly keep crying and worrying Elvis and Leah every time something happened, could she? Gu Mengmeng spread out the black pearl in her hands for Elvis and Leah to see, saying, "This thing is quite rare. I want to go down again tomorrow to suck up all the poisonous fog that has not been sucked dry, in case it pollutes the water source." "What poisonous fog?" Elvis's heart twitched as he asked coldly. Gu Mengmeng explained the situation at the bottom of the sea, including how she went down, how she obtained the kiss of the ocean, what she had encountered on the way back, and what Wabi was doing when he didn't follow up. Elvis and Leah were trembling with fear. They gritted their teeth and wanted nothing more than to strangle this troublemaker. Why did she run to wherever there was danger? The poisonous fog was so thick that even Wabi could not withstand it, and she dared to rush in without blinking? With her delicate skin, could she be more resistant to corrosion than Wabi's snake scales? No matter how Gu Mengmeng explained that she was fine, Elvis and Leah were sure that she had been corroded by the poisonous fog to the extent that a layer of her skin had been peeled off. "Well, no matter what, I've gotten the kiss of the ocean back." Gu Mengmeng's gaze landed on Carter's and Fei Rue's faces, then back at Melinda, who was still in a state of shock. The Mermaid Clan and Giant Fish clans suffered great losses in order to receive me. I cannot just leave like this. Leah said while wiping her hair, "I don't care about other things, but don't mention anything about going into the sea again." Gu Mengmeng turned her head and protested, "I still want to take in the fog. How can I not go into the sea?" Leah did not back down. "Let Wabi absorb the poisonous fog with this stupid pearl. You stay on the shore obediently." Gu Mengmeng said, "I won't." Leah chuckled, his gaze gentle and affectionate. He whispered into Gu Mengmeng's ear, "You have to believe. Elvis and I have 100 ways to make you lose the energy to go into the sea again. Do you want to try?" Without giving him a chance to speak, Fei Rue continued, "Also, after you have mated, I want to return to Saint Nazir with the great messenger." When he said this, everyone present was shocked. Elvis scooped Gu Mengmeng back into his arms. His powerful aura engulfed everyone, making them want to kneel on the ground. His face darkened and he looked like he was about to tear Fei Rue apart. "What do you want?" Fei Rue was trembling in fear. His clear eyes were filled with grievance. He looked like he was about to cry. "I want to learn the great messenger's new skills, and bring those magical skills back to the ocean. Aside from the topic, today's update has ended. Chapter 784. Gu Mengmeng smacked Elvis. "He's still a child, why are you scaring him?" Look at how scared he is, he's about to cry. Elvis was rather satisfied with Fei Rui's answer, so when Gu Mengmeng said that, Elvis did not say anything else. He just retracted his pressure and said calmly, as long as he doesn't have any improper thoughts, he won't meet with any undeserved misfortune. Fei Rui's eyes were filled with disbelief. This farce ended just like that. But Gu Mengmeng still didn't know how powerful the Bridges tribe would become in the near future. After all, she had neglected the number of fish that could be born in a single birth. Gu Mengmeng didn't attend Melinda and Carter's wedding. After all, there weren't any unnecessary formalities here. It was a simple and crude wedding where they directly consummated their marriage. Although Gu Mengmeng had already given birth to 4 children, she still held a conservative attitude when it came to observing other people's mating process. Eavesdropping was too exciting. She didn't want it. So Gu Mengmeng bade farewell to everyone at the seaside. Fei Rui stayed behind to wait for Carter and Melinda to mate before returning to St. Nazaire, while Gu Mengmeng and the rest returned the way they came. Gu Mengmeng originally wanted Wabiai to return to the Snake King Valley directly, but Wabiai had a lazy expression and didn't respond. Gu Mengmeng knew that he was still worried about her. He was afraid that if anything happened to her, he wouldn't be able to answer to Snake. But even though she was already so powerful that she didn't need to fear anyone, Wabiai still treated her like a parent. Gu Mengmeng felt helpless, but she didn't dislike it either. Sometimes, she even had the illusion that Wabiai was like her biological brother. He was impudent, but he would still stand in front of her when she was in danger. No matter how powerful she was, he still didn't think she could face any difficulties or dangers. This feeling was pretty good. After all, in the beast world, males only treated females with the intention of mating. But Wabiai was an exception. As for flaws, this brother of hers was a full 800 years older than her. TSK, the age difference was a little too big. The journey back was not as smooth as when they had come. Every so often, Gu Mengmeng could sense that someone was observing them from the shadows. However, it was obvious that they were afraid of Wabiai and Elvis's aura and didn't dare to reveal themselves. Gu Mengmeng chuckled. This must be after the kiss of the ocean? Heh, how convenient. Wabiai said lazily, this is the first time I've seen food following me. I don't even have to go far to hunt. Gu Mengmeng rolled her eyes. Can you not be so hardcore? Before they make a move, we can't make the first move. Wabiai clicked his tongue impatiently, expressing his disdain. Gu Mengmeng did not back down and snorted back. It was night and all was quiet. A few black figures tiptoed in the night sky and slowly approached the sleeping Gu Mengmeng. He was secretly delighted in his heart. Although he was powerful, he was a little too arrogant and conceited. He actually slept so soundly. Wasn't he a little too careless? One hand slowly reached towards Gu Mengmeng, wanting to take away the kiss of the ocean from her. However, before his hand could even touch her clothes, he felt a sharp pain. He looked down and saw that the back of his hand had already started to rot. Chapter 785. Tisk. After a soft sound, the black figure with a broken hand was thrown away. Leah swayed his large tail and said with a disappointed expression, Do you have any professional ethics? Can you make such a loud noise when stealing? I can't even pretend not to see it. So unprofessional, you let me down. The few people who came along looked at each other. What did he mean? Gu Mengmeng sat up from Elvis's arms. Elvis's blue eyes were filled with love as he looked at her. He rubbed her little head and said, In the end, I still disturbed your sleep, right? Gu Mengmeng sighed and said, I knew they were following me, I couldn't sleep well. Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's little face lightly and said, It's all right, I'll settle it soon. With that, Elvis stood up and walked step by step towards the few thieves who disturbed Gu Mengmeng's sleep. Even stray beasts have rules. Elvis stretched his neck to the left and right as a warm-up. In a flash, he grabbed the rat beast that was trying to escape and threw it into the sky. A huge eagle owl flew past at a low altitude and its 2 claws that were like metal pincers dug into the rat beast's flesh, directly throwing it into the sky. A cry of agony could be heard from 300 meters away, followed by scattered pieces of flesh falling from the sky. A gust of wind blew past and the eagle owl circled in the sky before landing steadily on the ground. He already looked like a sickly young man, his face as white as the moonlight and without a trace of life. His gaze was cold and not sharp, but it was as if he was strangling the throat of the person being stared at, causing fear to rise in one's heart. And all this happened in just 3 to 5 seconds. Taking another step forward, Elvis was like Satan in the dark night, emitting a dangerous aura around him. He was like the king of hell that could not be disobeyed. His words rang in the night sky, like a divine decree from Azura, sending chills down one's spine and making one submit. You can take it by force, but you can't steal it. And you guys have broken this rule. One of the stray beasts was so intimidated by this aura that his legs turned to jelly. He retreated and wanted to escape, but suddenly he seemed to have kicked something and a shiver shot up from the bottom of his feet. He did not even have the courage to look back. The snake's cold tongue licked his neck, and a lazy and slow voice rang in his ears, carrying with it an indescribable malice and ridicule. Supper? It doesn't look very delicious. Before he could even scream out in pain, his lower body had already been tightly wrapped by the thick snake tail, while his upper body was already in the snake's mouth. The remaining 3 ambushers exchanged glances and quickly locked onto their target, Leah. Although Ian and Leo were 3rd-level orcs, they did not have much of an advantage against land beasts that could fly. Meanwhile, the fox, who looked like a show-off, was obviously the easiest person to defeat in this team. With a sudden movement, the 3 ambushers charged towards Leo with all their might. But Leah chuckled and pointed at his own nose nonchalantly. I'm being belittled. With a turn, Leah easily dodged the first claw that attacked him. His furry large tail swept across that person's face playfully, with a strong sense of provocation. Chapter 786. The second stray beast that attacked Leo was grabbed by the wrist by Leah. With a snap, his arm was dislocated. It was not forcefully broken, but from the joints. The flesh was still connected, but the bones were broken. That arm was like a pendulum that had lost its power, hanging down casually. TSK, stretching out your claws in front of the witch doctor. Looks like you really don't want your claws anymore. Leah nimbly ducked under the other arm of the second stray beast and hid behind his back. At this moment, the 3rd stray beast's claws had already pierced through the chest of the second stray beast and was heading straight for Lee's throat. Luckily, Leah was not sticking close to the second stray beast's back. Instead, he was 1.5 steps away, so the 3rd stray beast's blood-stained hand missed. He retracted it and threw the second stray beast's corpse onto the ground without any guilt. Leah patted his own chest. Aya, you scared me to death. I almost got touched by you. He's so annoying. Our Mengmeng doesn't like others touching me. There was only one of the 3 stray beasts left, and it was the only 4th-level orc among the 3. Given Lee's current abilities, it was very dangerous to go against him. In order not to be attacked from both sides, Leah had decided to get rid of the 2 3rd-level beasts first. But even if it was a one-on-one battle, it was still very difficult to retaliate with the difference in levels. Apart from Gu Mengmeng, he did not care about anyone else's life or death. Ian wanted to step forward to help Leah but was held down by his shoulder by Elvis. Ian looked at Elvis in confusion, but Elvis turned to look at Gu Mengmeng. With Gu Mengmeng's current abilities, helping Leah was just a matter of beckoning her finger. But she did not move at all. She just clenched her fists tightly and stared at Lee's battle. She did not even have the intention of asking Elvis to help Leah. Then Elvis's gaze was gentle. The corners of his lips curled up into a beautiful curve. Leah had been seen through. The stray beast's fangs pressed towards Lee's spine. If he bit down, Leah would be crippled even if he did not die. Leah, I won't allow you to get hurt. Gu Mengmeng sat on the spot. Her voice seemed like a slight ripple, but it could not conceal the waves hidden within. Her voice was trembling. She was afraid. This knowledge made Leah hesitate. Should he continue pretending? If the way he did it for her good made her worry, then would he still persist? No, you can't. Because he had already hurt her once, for her own good, he absolutely could not let it happen a second time. With a sweep of its fluffy tail, it sent the stray beast flying. The tip of his foot touched the ground lightly, but his entire body bounced up as if he had stepped on a spring. In an instant, he landed behind the stray beast that had been sent flying and kicked his lumbar vertebrae. The huge impact in Li's kick caused the stray beast's spine to crack. He flew out in a strange manner, just like a broken doll that did not receive the slightest bit of pity. Then, a layer of moonlight enveloped Li's body, making him look like an elf in the dark night. The bloodstains on his body were not hideous. Instead, they looked like poppies blooming on the other shore, exuding a fatal temptation. Chapter 787. Gu Mengmeng cupped Li's face and gave him a deep kiss. It was a lingering kiss. "Leah, congratulations on leveling up." Leah didn't reply and just hugged Gu Mengmeng in his arms. This little one was too shrewd now. It was getting harder and harder to deceive her. But this difficulty made him feel an unprecedented sense of bliss. She was paying attention to him like this. She didn't say anything, but she knew everything. After half the night, coupled with the blood and corpses all over the ground, it looked like a slaughterhouse. There was no way she could sleep in this place. Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng in his arms and used a beast skin to cover her head to let her catch up on her sleep. Meanwhile, the few males continued their journey towards Saint Nazaire. It was normal for males to not sleep for a few days and nights. They had to stop and rest every night just to take care of Gu Mengmeng's routine. Although Gu Mengmeng didn't need to do anything in the middle of the night, she was still very nervous. Now that she was at ease, her deep sleepiness couldn't be dispelled no matter what. She slept all the way until noon when she was woken up by hunger. When the sun was at its hottest, it was the most torturous for Wabi. He lay lazily on the tree, his head drooping, not wanting to talk to anyone. He did not sleep, nor did he move. He just sat there like a rubber snake. Although Ian could fly, his strength was at its peak at night. During the day, he looked even more lethargic and listless, as if a gust of wind could blow him over. He was a male, but he looked as if he was suffering from anemia due to menstruation for 30 days a month. She didn't know what was going on. Seeing how weak he looked like a little sister in the forest, Gu Mengmeng felt that not feeding him was torture, not to mention letting him hunt. So, Elvis handed Gu Mengmeng over to Leah and went out to hunt. Gu Mengmeng sat in Li's arms and stroked his large tail. She exclaimed in surprise, "Your tail seems to have become thicker after you leveled up." Seeing that Gu Mengmeng liked his transformation, Leah couldn't help but smile. He said, "The appearance of the Snow Fox tribe will change according to their level." Gu Mengmeng turned around and looked at Li's face carefully. Leah was good-looking to begin with. Coupled with his otherworldly aura, he looked like a demon or a deity. Perhaps after looking at him for a long time, Gu Mengmeng had become immune to it, so she had not carefully scrutinized Li's facial features for a long time. Gu Mengmeng then looked at his eyes seriously after he mentioned it. Her eyebrows looked a little thicker than before. She looked a little less charming and more heroic. His tall nose seemed to have narrowed a little, becoming a more standard Western tiger's nose instead of the Oriental lion's nose. The tip of his nose was firm, making his facial features more three-dimensional and deep. A pair of long and affectionate eyes seemed to be filled with spring water, pouring a pool of deep love onto Gu Mengmeng's face, as if she was the only person in the entire world who could see him. His thin lips did not have a single wrinkle and looked as perfect as a work of art carved by God. His slightly opened mouth was like an invitation, making Gu Mengmeng feel an urge to immediately offer her lips to him. Li's face was even more perfect than before, so perfect that every angle was like a masterpiece. Chapter 788. It's broad daylight. What nonsense are you spouting? Gu Mengmeng blushed and lowered her head. However, Leah replied with a meaningful, "Oh." His lips moved closer to Gu Mengmeng's ear, his warm and ambiguous breath sprayed onto Gu Mengmeng's earlobe. With a hoarse voice, he said in an ambiguous tone, "So, this is an invitation? You can pamper me at night, right?" She did not know if it was a psychological effect, But Lee's hormones seemed to have increased after he leveled up. She should have been used to being teased, but after being teased for half a year, she could no longer resist Lee's advances. Lee's fingers slid across Gu Mingming's arm, from her shoulder to her wrist. His fingertips seemed to carry an electric current, causing Gu Mingming's body to go numb. The only place she could hide was to lean deeper into his arms. Leah was satisfied with Gu Mingming's little action, but his hand landed on the kiss of the ocean in her hands. He tapped it twice nonchalantly and said, "The kiss of the ocean can absorb the poison left behind by Elvis in your body. If you eat it, our mating problem will be solved." Gu Mingming looked at the fist-sized black pearl in her hands and twitched her lips. "Are you sure you won't choke me to death?" Leah lightly knocked Gu Mingming's head. "Silly girl, who asked you to eat it whole? I can crush it and then you can eat it." Gu Mingming had thought Leah was just joking around with his suggestion. Seeing that he was really prepared to crush it, Gu Mingming panicked. She pulled the kiss of the ocean back into her arms and frowned. "No, this is Qishuan's ransom. You cannot touch it." Leah sighed and did not touch the kiss of the ocean again. He just hugged Gu Mingming and said, "What should I do? I'm jealous." The top of Gu Mingming's head was pressed against Lee's chin. She could not lift her head to look at his expression and could only respond with a single word. Leah said, "Elvis is your first partner and is more important to you than me. I admit that. But now, even the little wolf pups are more important than me. My heart hurts." Gu Mingming smiled helplessly. "You are all my family and equally important to me. But Qi Xian is in a more dangerous situation now, so I have no choice but to prioritize him." "I know," Leah said. "I also promised not to make things difficult for you. I understand the logic, but I still feel very disappointed. I was too greedy, wasn't I? I want to be the most important person to you." Gu Mingming hugged Leah and leaned her face against his chest, saying softly, "I'm sorry." Lee's heart skipped a beat. He pursed his lips and chuckled. "You know very well that I prefer your confession to an apology." Without any hesitation, Gu Mingming said softly, "I love you." Leah then smiled contentedly and did not say anything else. He had committed a taboo. He should not have fought for the most important in front of Gu Mingming. Back then, when Gu Mingming wanted to give him the only one, he was the one who forcefully pushed her into Elvis's arms. Later, Mingming asked him to give up. It was he himself who said that even if he could only be a beast pet, it would be fine as long as he could stay by her side. But now, he was already her legitimate partner, and he could confidently hold her in his arms. However, people were always greedy. Chapter 789. Actually, you could have leveled up a long time ago, right? Gu Mingming pressed her little face against Lee's chest, listening to his heartbeat. Although it was a question, it sounded like a statement when it came out of his mouth. Leah chuckled and did not deny it. Gu Mingming continued, "I thought about it many times after that. Previously, when we were attacked by stray beasts, although you were caught in a pincer attack, the other party was also a third-level orc. With your third-level energy reserves, as long as you broke through the boundary, you could use the level system to turn the situation around. But you seem to rather be injured than leveling up. I always felt that it was strange, until last night, when those 3 stray beasts attacked you together without any discussion. Only then did I understand what you were thinking." Lee's face carried an indulgent smile throughout. He had always disliked others guessing his thoughts, especially when his thoughts were seen through. He would be very resistant and immediately force himself to hide his emotions even deeper. But when he was seen through by Gu Mingming, he felt a faint sense of excitement and anticipation. It was as if his carefully wrapped present was opened by his beloved, and with just one look, the other party knew how much effort he had put into choosing the present and how meticulously he had wrapped it. The feeling of his efforts being seen and cherished was really good. It was so good that the blood in his entire body warmed up, nourishing every cell in his body. Tell me about it." Leah coaxed Gu Mingming to say more of her thoughts. He liked to hear her describe her thinking process, because he could not enter her brain to see clearly how she looked when her mind was filled with himself. So, he treasured every word she explained to him, and even more so, He treasured the lively expression on her face when she talked about topics related to him. Gu Mengmeng did not know how Leah was feeling when he looked at her. His gaze towards her was always affectionate and she seemed to have gotten used to it. But thinking about the reason why Leah was unwilling to level up, Gu Mengmeng could not help feeling a little heartache. She sighed softly and said, "You didn't level up because you wanted to focus all the danger on yourself when we encountered a situation like yesterday, using yourself as bait to ensure my safety." His heart trembled. His Gu Mengmeng was so sensitive he felt warm and proud, but also a little uneasy. As sensitive as she was, she couldn't accept his kindness with a clear conscience. Gu Mengmeng looked up and met Li's eyes. She said seriously, "You clearly know that I am already strong enough now, you don't need to do this anymore." "Silly girl." Leah rubbed Gu Mengmeng's head. The sunlight passed through the leaves and landed on his face, bringing much warmth to his smile. He pulled Gu Mengmeng's little hand to his lips and kissed it before continuing, "No matter how strong you are, you will always be my weakness. If you are even the slightest injury, it would be my heart." Chapter 790. Didn't he know that her heart would ache? No, Leah had always known that. He even hoped that Gu Mengmeng would never see through his thoughts, but at the same time he was waiting for her to say, "Her heart will ache." Gu Mengmeng looked up into Li's eyes and said seriously and cautiously, "When Snake died, I almost couldn't recover from the setback. If not for you and Elvis staying by my side, I might never have been able to walk out of it. Do you want me to experience that kind of collapse again? If you were the one who died, I would break down." Leah hugged Gu Mengmeng tightly in his arms and kissed her left ear, saying intimately, "I was wrong, I shouldn't have made you worry. Don't be angry, don't be sad, forgive me, all right?" Gu Mengmeng's chin rested on Li's shoulder and she tilted her head, saying softly, "Hurry up and become stronger. Didn't you say that you will accompany me to bully others and become tyrants?" Leah chuckled, holding Gu Mengmeng's little face and kissing her lips. Under the sunlight, his smile was exceptionally radiant and beautiful, saying, "All right, as long as Gu Mengmeng says it, I will do it. I will quickly become stronger, then accompany you to bully others and rape others." Gu Mengmeng basked in the sun, feeling much more relaxed now that she had spoken her mind. Leah would always do what he promised her. He said that he would become stronger, and that he would no longer use himself as bait. This made Gu Mengmeng feel much more at ease. After waiting for a long time, Gu Mengmeng turned to look into the distance and said worriedly, "Why isn't Elvis back yet?" Leah also felt that with Elvis's abilities, the time taken for this hunt was a little too long. Not wanting Gu Mengmeng to worry, he said casually, "After all, this is not our territory, it might be more troublesome to find satisfying prey. You also know, other than meat, he also wants to be picky about the skin." Gu Mengmeng nodded. After the rainy season ended, it was going to be winter. At this time, Elvis really had to start preparing the beast's skin for their family to use during the winter. And ever since Gu Mengmeng appeared, Elvis's requirements for the beast's skin became stricter and stricter. Sometimes, Gu Mengmeng even suspected that Elvis was a Virgo. Thinking about this, she did not say anything more and continued to nestle in Li's arms, stroking the two. The upgraded version of Big Tail was waiting for Elvis to return. Without a watch, Gu Mengmeng could only estimate the time. About 1.5 to 2 hours later, Elvis returned with the processed prey. However, "You're hurt." Gu Mengmeng immediately jumped out of Li's arms and looked at the palm-sized wound on Elvis's shoulder. Her heart ached. "What happened? Are you in danger?" Elvis looked at his wound and laughed softly. He rubbed Gu Mengmeng's little head and carried her up while passing the prey to Leah to cook. "No, I was bitten by accident when I was hunting. I have a strong recovery ability. I'll be fine tomorrow or the day after." Gu Mengmeng frowned and looked at Elvis. "You promised not to lie to me. A 5th-grade orc had been bitten by its prey during a hunt? Why don't you say that a wolf jumped into a rabbit's nest and was eaten by the rabbit?" Chapter 791. Gu Mengmeng pursed her lips and took a deep breath. She stared into Elvis's eyes for a long time without saying a word. Elvis felt guilty from her stare. Gu Mengmeng was too observant now, and it was too difficult to hide anything from her. Xiaomeng. Elvis opened his mouth, wanting to beg for mercy. But Gu Mengmeng didn't give him a chance. She raised her head and shouted, "Li Xin Wabi, follow me." Gu Mengmeng pushed Elvis and jumped down from his arms. The three people who were called out did not say a word and just stood a step behind Gu Mengmeng. Xiaomeng. Elvis wanted to say something but stopped himself. He wanted to call out to her but didn't know how to start. Gu Mengmeng frowned and looked at the wound on Elvis's shoulder. Feeling vexed, she shook her head and said, "My man was bitten to this extent. If I don't pull out all his teeth, I am not Gu Mengmeng." With that, she turned to leave. Leah glanced back at Elvis with a conflicted gaze, but he didn't say anything. He carried Gu Mengmeng and walked in the direction Elvis had come from. There was a rustling sound in the bushes, and Gu Mengmeng knew that it was the little snake that Wabi had brought out from the Snake King Valley. She instructed, "Lead the way and find the person who bit Elvis for me." The little snake hissed and stuck out its tongue, replying to Gu Mengmeng in snake language. Then, it shot out in all directions like an arrow released from a bow, fanning out in a carpet search. How could Elvis let Gu Mengmeng leave just like that? Even if she had the powers of a beast king and a fifth-level pervert like Wabi was by her side, she was still his female. How could he be at ease if she rushed in without knowing anything? He quickly chased after her, wanting to pull her back from Li's arms. But Gu Mengmeng turned her head to show her rejection. "Xiaomeng." Elvis sighed and finally gave in. "I will tell you the truth, all right? Don't be angry, all right?" Gu Mengmeng then turned to look at Elvis. The words "lie and you will die" were clearly written on her face. Elvis was not afraid of the heavens, the earth, pain and death. But he was extremely afraid of this delicate little person in Li's arms. There was nothing he could do when she was angry. "The stray beasts here are old acquaintances of mine," Elvis said with a frown. Gu Mengmeng was stunned. Old acquaintance? Could it be? Elvis nodded and said, "This is where I was born." Under Gu Mengmeng's signal, everyone stopped in their tracks and just stared at Elvis. Gu Mengmeng sighed and opened her arms towards Elvis in Li's arms. "Hug!" Elvis chuckled and took Gu Mengmeng back from Li's arms. He kissed her face and took in her scent greedily. Only then did the uneasiness in his heart slowly dissipate. Wabi and Ian tactfully retreated far away, leaving space for the family of three. Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng to a big tree and with a leap, he sat on a branch. Gu Mengmeng sat steadily in his arms, while Leah chose a branch that was slightly lower than Elvis and Gu Mengmeng to lie on, raising his head to look at Elvis and Gu Mengmeng. Elvis calmed his emotions and said slowly, "The person who bit me is my blood-related father beast." Chapter 792. Seeing that Gu Mengmeng's expression was not right, Elvis felt a little heartache and asked, "Actually, you don't have to force yourself to face them, I can handle it." Gu Mengmeng did not say a word and just lowered her head. She had already imagined a drama about the feud between the rich and the powerful. Elvis's father would throw a blank check at her face and say with a dark tone, "Fill in the amount yourself, take the money and get lost from my son. A woman like you is not worthy of my son." Then, Gu Mengmeng would slap the table and stand up to retort with a classic line, "I'm different from the other women around him, I'm not with him for money." Then, Elvis's father would sneer sinisterly, "You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit? Very good. Then your friends around you will start to be unlucky one by one. I want to see how long you can fight with me for." Gu Mengmeng had already started to shiver. When Elvis's father threw her a check, should she obediently accept it and then use the money to support Elvis? Or should she tear it into pieces domineeringly and throw it back at his father's face? Wait, she seemed to have neglected a very important question. What question was it? There were no checks in the beast world. Then, what would his father throw at her face? Beast skin? Xiaomeng. Seeing that Gu Mengmeng did not answer him, Elvis's expression kept changing and no one knew what he was thinking. He was a little worried and frustrated. He had already tried his best not to get hurt, but that old fellow still bit his shoulder. Damn it. Gu Mengmeng looked up with a wronged expression. She pouted and asked, "Will you listen to your father?" "Elvis?" Gu Mengmeng continued, "If your father objects to you being with me, will you abandon me?" "Elvis." Gu Mengmeng hugged Elvis's neck and said, "Let's elope, we'll return to St. Nazaire now and hide far away from him." Elvis laughed out loud. All his worries were crushed into dust by her invitation to elope. The words that he wanted to explain and comfort were stuck in his throat, finally condensing into an indulgent one. Leah held his forehead, expressing his helplessness at this development. On the way here, he had already noticed that something was wrong with Elvis. Combined with the aura of the orcs who were secretly following them, he could roughly guess the relationship between them and Elvis. But it was obvious that the relationship between Elvis and his beast father was different from what Gu Mengmeng had imagined. However, he and Elvis were happy to see her not getting involved in this mess, so Leah did not insist on it. He raised his head and said, "If you want to run, you have to be quick. Otherwise, they will catch up to us." Gu Mengmeng sat up straight and was about to climb down from the tree with Elvis. The moment she moved, she was taken aback and smiled bitterly. "It's already too late." Leah and Elvis quickly straightened their bodies and entered a state of alertness. They knew very well that Gu Mengmeng's senses were sharper than theirs. Gu Mengmeng sat on a tree branch and pointed at the bushes not far away. She smiled and said, "Since we are already here, why hide?" The bushes shook a few times and a male stood up from the bushes. He was tall and burly, exuding an indescribable aura from his body. He looked very much like a darkened version of Elvis. His genes were so strong that there was no need for a DNA test. Aside from the topic, yeah, Daddy Elvis would be online tomorrow. So, today's update ended again. Chapter 793. Gu Mengmeng was still a little nervous when she saw that face. After all, it was her first time meeting an elder. "Greetings, great messenger." Elvis's father spoke first and bowed to Gu Mengmeng under the tree. Gu Mengmeng felt a little awkward. She wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck and allowed him to carry her down from the tree. Just as she was about to say something to Elvis's father, Elvis spoke first. How dare you approach this place alone? Have you really gone senile?" Gu Mengmeng was taken aback and did not know what to say. 16 years old. So Elvis was in his rebellious phase now? The injury on your shoulder doesn't seem to be enough to let you understand the difference between you and me, right? Gu Mengmeng frowned. So Elvis's way of educating Kanwu was passed down from his ancestors? Did their family always have such a strong tone? Elvis placed Gu Mengmeng in Li's arms, then walked towards his beast father. Standing 3 steps away from them, they faced each other. Gu Mengmeng could almost see the sparks between their eyes. She could feel the sparks flying in their eyes. A male with a female is equivalent to having misgivings and weaknesses. My stupid son, you are actually so deeply involved in it. You have really let down my expectations of you. Elvis sneered and moved his neck left and right. This was a small movement before he prepared to attack. Gu Mengmeng knew that once this small movement appeared, it meant that he was going to fight with his life on the line. He would not stop until he was dead. With his own father, did he need to be so ruthless? Gu Mengmeng was worried that something would really happen during the fight. She called out, "Hubby, don't fool around." Elvis's back stiffened, but he still turned around and returned to Gu Mengmeng's side without any hesitation. His father did not say anything and just smiled in disdain. That smile was extremely sarcastic and arrogant, making people uncomfortable. She did not know how to describe that kind of oppression. Gu Mengmeng did not like this father-in-law. Even though his appearance was almost 80% similar to Elvis, she still did not like him. With conflict, her tone was naturally not very friendly. She said coldly, "I respect that you are Elvis's father, so I do not intend to treat you in any discordant manner. But I really do not like others to bully my man. So please stop before you go too far. If you have anything to say to me, please say it quickly and leave immediately. Because my man obviously doesn't want to see you." Elvis's father took a step forward and sized up Gu Mengmeng. It was not as if he was inspecting his daughter-in-law, but more like food. Gu Mengmeng did not like his gaze but did not want to argue with him. You want to eat me? He was just afraid that his teeth weren't good enough and he wouldn't be able to bite down. I want the kiss of the ocean in your hands. Give it to me and I'll leave. Impossible, I have other uses for this. Gu Mengmeng rejected him confidently. Elvis's father seemed to have expected that Gu Mengmeng would not agree so easily, so he lowered his shoulders slightly and stretched his shoulder blades. Since that's the case, I can only rely on my own abilities to snatch it from you. Her malicious and murderous gaze landed on Elvis. I heard that he is your first partner. Let's start with him. If you change your mind and are willing to give the kiss of the ocean to me, tell me. If it's in time, it might be able to save his life. Chapter 794. Both of their fighting styles were swift and fierce. Every move was aimed at fatal spots, and there was not the slightest bit of sloppiness in their movements. Gu Mengmeng also became nervous. She clenched her fists tightly, trying to control her emotions. A cold sensation wrapped around her ankle. Looking down, she saw a familiar snake tail wrapping itself around her. Wabi-ai. Gu Mengmeng was puzzled. Wabi-ai yawned nonchalantly. Only by protecting you can your little wolf have nothing to worry about. Didn't you realize? That fellow only needs to create the illusion that he is going to attack you, and your little wolf will be distracted. And he will always be on the defensive. Even though they are evenly matched, they are already at a disadvantage. Even though they knew that no one in the beast world could hurt her, she was still their weakness. These words were not just empty words. Indeed, after Wabi-ai protected Gu Mengmeng tightly, Elvis's passive situation was alleviated. Although he had already suffered many injuries, his gaze was more focused and his judgment sharpened. Including the time in the ocean, Gu Mengmeng had fought with stray beasts twice. She knew that the stray beasts' fighting style was brutal and ruthless, but she didn't know they could be this wild. If a battle between a proper tribe and a stray beast was like an NBA basketball game, exciting and tense, with no mistakes allowed and every shot determined the outcome of the game, then the battle between Elvis and his father was like an underground basketball game with a life and death contract. Winning and losing was not just about the game, but also about life and death. So, unless Elvis died or killed his own father with his own hands, this battle would not stop? Was he going to force his own son to this extent just for the kiss of the ocean? Gu Mengmeng really couldn't understand the family relationships in the beast world. She thought that Elvis and Kanwa's interaction was already weird enough. Who knew that it was already the gentle version? Mengmeng, are you going to eat the kiss of the ocean? Leah suddenly asked. Gu Mengmeng was taken aback for 2 seconds before she immediately smiled. Yes, I am going to eat it. That way, no one will keep thinking about it and steal it. As expected, Elvis's father panicked the moment she said that. He didn't even care about his battle with Elvis or Wabi-ai, who was protecting Gu Mengmeng. He pounced at Gu Mengmeng, prepared to snatch the kiss of the ocean from her hands. The moment he revealed a flaw, Elvis bit his thigh without hesitation and pulled him back forcefully. He threw him onto the ground and stepped on the back of his waist, looking down on him like a messenger from hell pronouncing death. His face was cold and calm, as if even the most basic fear towards death had disappeared. A trace of regret flashed in his father's eyes, but he immediately felt relieved. He coldly snorted, "The winner takes all. If you want to kill me, then kill me." Elvis had no intention to be courteous with him. He raised his sharp claws and dug straight for his heart. Gu Mengmeng opened her mouth and only used 2 words to disperse Elvis's murderous aura. The claws transformed into human hands in midair and Elvis tilted his head to look at Gu Mengmeng, as if waiting for her to continue. Gu Mengmeng knew that Elvis didn't have a good impression of his father. Even if he didn't know what had happened in the past, Gu Mengmeng still had the ability to tell the truth. But Gu Mengmeng still couldn't kill her own father with her own hands. Chapter 795. I can't give you the kiss of the ocean, but if you are willing to tell me what you need it for, maybe I can think of other ways to help you. Gu Mengmeng pushed Wabi away and walked to Elvis's side. Opening her arms, she made a gesture of asking for a hug. She wasn't afraid of Elvis's murderous aura, but she hoped that she could bring Elvis peace and happiness. Killing might be the simplest and most direct way to solve problems, but it would never make one happy. Her man shouldn't struggle in the midst of killing. Elvis had never resisted Gu Mengmeng's closeness. It was the same at all times. He carried Gu Mengmeng up, then retreated warily. Wabi stood lazily between Elvis and his father, while Leah stood half a step in front of Elvis. Even Ian was hidden in the treetops, in a defensive position. There were also countless little snakes waiting in the bushes. As long as Elvis's father made the slightest misstep, these few forces would rush out to tear him to shreds and slaughter him. He sighed. It could be said that an ambitious man was short of breath. He forced himself up. As a stray beast, he knew all too well how passive his current situation was. Death was clearly the release he had always been seeking, but he couldn't die now. He couldn't let go of the person he originally hated. If he, the leader of the stray beasts, died, what would become of that person's situation? He should be feeling the thrill of revenge, but his heart just clenched painfully. I want to use it to save someone. Elvis's father said. Who? Gu Mengmeng asked. Elvis's father hesitated for a moment, but still raised his hand and pointed at Elvis. His mother. Your wife? Gu Mengmeng blurted out, but immediately realized that she had said something wrong. If Elvis's mother was his wife, how could he have become a stray beast? So, as expected, Elvis's father shuddered as if a sharpened bamboo had pierced his heart. Gu Mengmeng knew that she had said the wrong thing, and that an apology would be too pretentious. She changed the topic. What's wrong with her? Elvis's father's gaze was a little cloudy. He lowered his head and said with difficulty, She's dying. Gu Mengmeng was taken aback. She turned to look at Elvis. Elvis's face was expressionless, as if he was listening to a story that had nothing to do with him. It wasn't that he was cold-blooded, but he was too unfamiliar with the word mother. In his entire life, he had never felt any warmth from his mother. On the contrary, almost all the suffering he had suffered in his childhood came from that female. Sympathy, it was too difficult for Elvis. But he had never mentioned all these to Gu Mengmeng. It was not that he did not want to be comforted, but he did not want those ugly memories to appear in her memory. As long as she was by his side, it was already a great comfort. Gu Mengmeng knew that Elvis did not have a happy childhood and suffered a lot. She did not want to force Elvis to forgive his parents, but at least let them live. This way, when Elvis wanted to forgive them one day, he would have the chance to hear that, sorry. Leah. Gu Mengmeng turned towards Leah. Leah was the professional when it came to saving lives. Chapter 796. Glancing at Elvis's father, Gu Mengmeng shook her head. Let's go together. Leah tilted his head and raised his brows. Are you belittling me and thinking that I will be bullied? Gu Mengmeng shook her head. I can't bear to be separated from you, not even for a second. Yeah, this was a reason he could not reject. Leah knew that Gu Mengmeng was just trying to appease him, but he could not bear to expose this sweet little lie. The feeling of being pestered by her felt so good. Looking up at Elvis, Leah chuckled. First partner, the female has spoken. What should we do? The place that had once been like hell to him no longer held any special meaning now. The male whom he had once thought he would never be able to defeat, now had one of his legs bitten to pieces by him. The female whom he had repeatedly resented for giving birth to him. He could not even remember what she looked like now. Even so, since Xiao Meng felt that he should go and see her, then so be it. Carrying Gu Mengmeng, he slowly walked in front of his father. Elvis looked at him coldly, as if he was looking at a stranger. He slowly opened his mouth. His voice sounded like a soul-sucking demon from hell. Peter, you better not play any tricks. Otherwise, I can easily destroy everything you have now, including that female. Threatening his own father, be it his expression or words, were much sharper than when he was fighting Canwell. In comparison, Elvis was practically a loving father to Canwell. Gu Mingming face-bombed. She no longer had the energy to criticize the way this father and son interacted with each other. Ignoring Peter, Elvis walked past him and headed towards the place where he used to rest based on his memory. Wabi continued to follow lazily while Ian circled in the sky. Leah was unexpectedly kind and used a tree branch as a splint to fix Peter's leg in place. Then he wagged his tail and followed beside Gu Mingming. He smiled slyly and asked her to repeat that she couldn't bear to leave him, not even for a second. Perhaps this was the first time someone had entered the stray beast's territory of their own accord. Moreover, he looked like he was on an outing and seemed to be in a good mood. This scene was especially strange in the eyes of the stray beasts. A 5th-level snake beast, a 5th-level wolf beast, a 4th-level snowfox, and a 3rd-level birdman. This combination was not to be trifled with. However, the little beauty in the wolf beast's arms looked very alluring and smelled very nice. The primitive restlessness triggered a series of low whimpers. His lecherous and greedy gaze lingered on Gu Mingming, making her feel extremely displeased. Cupping Elvis's face with both hands, she looked at Leah and said, "If you feel uncomfortable, you must tell me." The two males chuckled, feeling rather helpless, but they could only nod their heads. Then, Gu Mingming swept a cold glance across the area and instantly unleashed a powerful suppressive force, causing those stray beasts to collapse to the ground. Elvis and Wabi were still all right, while Leah looked like he was struggling to hold on. But Ian, who was flying in midair, fell straight down. He looked at Gu Mingming with a pitiful expression. "Sorry," Gu Mingming stuck her tongue out at Ian apologetically. First-level and second-level stray beasts were forced back to their original forms by Gu Mingming. Third-level and above stray beasts might not die, but their brains were also in a mess. Beast King level? Beast King. His bones were trembling, and his only instinct was to escape. Chapter 797. The layout of the cave reminded Gu Mingming of the water curtain cave in Journey to the West. Apart from the fact that there was no waterfall at the entrance, any monkey would be able to pull up the Great Sage Equaling Heaven's flag with a pole. She really couldn't tell that this was the cave of a stray beast leader. She had thought that stray beasts lived in places that were as grand as the Lion Camel Ridge. Taking a few steps in, she saw a thick bed made from animal skin. A female lay on it, so skinny that she barely resembled a human. Gu Mingming shot Leah a look and he walked up to check on her condition. Surprisingly, she didn't have any external injuries or internal illnesses. She just looked like she was about to die. Leah looked at Peter and asked, "How long has she been like this?" Peter frowned. "She has been like this since the end of the monsoon season. She refused to eat and has been starving." Gu Mingming instinctively glanced at Elvis. Elvis's expression was indifferent and he didn't react at all. He really treated this female as a stranger. Gu Mingming sighed. "You guys go out first. I want to talk to her." Elvis surveyed the surroundings. After confirming that this female was alone, he didn't have anything to worry about. He turned to leave first. Peter was worried but had no other choice but to follow. After everyone left, Gu Mingming sat beside the female. "I am Gu Mingming. I am Elvis's partner." The female's eyes brightened at that. Her first reaction was to look at the cave entrance. But Elvis had already walked far away. She couldn't even see his back. There was a moment of disappointment, but it wasn't too obvious. She just lowered her head and didn't say a word. "Shall I call Elvis in and let him talk to you?" Gu Mingming probed. The female seemed to hesitate for a moment before shaking her head. "I don't have the face to see him. As long as he is alive, that's enough." All mothers were the same. How could they not dote on their own children? Gu Mingming saw that the female was willing to talk about Elvis, so she continued asking. "Elvis has never been willing to tell me about his childhood, but I'm actually quite curious. If you are willing, why don't you tell me about Elvis when he was young?" The female's gaze dimmed. Her eyelids drooped, and even her fingertips trembled. "His childhood was a disaster. You shouldn't have brought him back here. It wasn't easy for him to escape." Thinking about how Elvis and his father met, Gu Mengmeng could almost understand what the so-called disaster was about. But I heard that you're very sick. We can't just leave you to die. After all, you are Elvis's mother, Gu Mengmeng said. The female closed her eyes slowly and a teardrop fell from the corner of her eye onto the beast's skin. Elvis, perhaps he wished that he never had a mother like me. You guys go, don't worry about me. This is the price I should pay. Gu Mengmeng did not understand what she meant. She just felt that the teardrop was really sad. Maybe you can tell me about your difficulties. Maybe I can help you. The female shook her head. He won't agree. No one can save me. I'm already very satisfied to know that Elvis is safe and sound before I die. I can die without regrets. Chapter 798. The female was clearly smiling, but her face was filled with despair. Why? Gu Mengmeng didn't understand. She could understand if she had wanted to die from the torment and humiliation she had suffered when she was kidnapped by the stray beasts. Now, Elvis was already 16 years old. If she wanted to die from the humiliation, wasn't that too long a reaction? Peter's attitude towards this female was not the same as a normal stray beast's attitude towards a female he had kidnapped. She could tell from the place she lived and Peter's willingness to risk his life to snatch the kiss of the ocean for her. Not to mention her current level of power, just the presence of Elvis and Wabi alone was enough to put him in a perilous situation. For him to be willing to risk his life for her, Gu Mengmeng didn't believe that he didn't treat her well. So Gu Mengmeng just couldn't understand why she suddenly didn't want to live. Do you know what despair is? The female spoke slowly. Her voice was as soft as a feather being blown away by the wind. If one didn't listen carefully, they wouldn't even be able to hear her voice. Despair? Gu Mengmeng didn't have a deep understanding of this word. In the modern world, she was the kind of person whose grandmother didn't care for her and uncle didn't love her. When she was 4 years old, her father had an affair and married a young mistress, forcing her mother to divorce. When she was 6 years old, her mother brought her along to remarry. Then she began a long life of watching her mother suffer domestic abuse because she was a burden. Every day, she would tremble all over at the sound of the door. She was truly terrified. But this kind of life only lasted until she was 13 years old. Her stepfather could no longer tolerate an extra person in the house, so she was chased out. Holding her 2-year-old brother in her arms, Mom chose the latter between her and her family. Many people said she was pitiful, deserving of sympathy and pity. But she didn't think so. There were curves in life and it wouldn't always go down. When you were extremely unlucky, you would always be able to live on. So she tried her best to find a place where she could work without identification. Even if the pay was low, as long as food and lodging were provided. Although it was tough, she still felt that her life was getting better day by day. Despair was never a word that existed in her dictionary. After transmigrating to the beast deity, she was very flustered and did not know what to do. However, Elvis and Leah had given her more warmth and love than the accumulated 18 years of being together in the modern world. Although there would always be problems, she had never doubted the happiness she had. So, what kind of despair would make this female give up her life? It was a long and slow process of torture. During this process, every second was torture. Your stomach would constantly challenge your determination to die. But even so, she actually endured for nearly half a year. Chapter 799. After that, I even started to persuade Peter to stay. In order to prevent him from hurting my males, I even took the initiative to seduce him. The female's gaze remained blank, as if she was narrating someone else's story in the third person. It would not hurt so much if it had nothing to do with her. It was then that I became pregnant with Elvis. At the mention of Elvis, the female instinctively looked towards the entrance of the cave. Unfortunately, there was nothing there. Although I did not love Peter, it was my first pregnancy after all. I was still very happy. But Peter was forcing me to choose between my children and my only remaining companion. He said that if I wanted to keep my partner, I had to mate with him until the child was miscarried. If I wanted to keep my child, then he had to leave this cave immediately until I gave birth. But the price was that the 2 remaining marks on my body would disappear. Gu Mingming frowned. She could understand if she said that she could not tolerate other males because she was too possessive. But wasn't it too perverted to mate until the child was miscarried? After all, it was his own flesh and blood in that womb. The female seemed to have seen Gu Mingming's expression, or rather, she did not care about Gu Mingming's reaction. She just needed an outlet to vent all the emotions that she had not dared to express all these years. I was ultimately selfish. I wanted to keep my child. So that night, the 2 marks on my chest disappeared at the same time. Even though I kept praying for them to escape, they still died. For the sake of the child in my womb, I forced myself to live on. I had to live on. So no matter how much I vomited or how much pain I was in, I gritted my teeth and persevered. But when my child was not even a month old, he took them all away. I was imprisoned in this cave, unable to see the light of day. In order to see my child, I gave up my pride and everything to please him. But all I got in return was one nightmare after another. Out of the 6 wolf pups, only Elvis survived. He kept using Elvis to threaten me. As long as I showed the slightest sign of disobedience, he would torture Elvis. I did not even dare to die. During the rainy season, I finally knew that my Elvis was so strong that he could no longer hurt me easily. I could finally be at ease. Finally, I am free. He killed my partner, killed my son, imprisoned me here, and tortured me. And after so many years, even my hatred has been worn away. True despair is when I don't even have the desire to kill him for revenge. There's nothing in this world that I'm reluctant to part with anymore. Be it love or hate, there's nothing left. Gu Mingming quietly listened to her finish recounting the past, not interrupting in the middle. Until she had finished, she slowly closed her eyes, looking as if her heart was as still as water and only wished for death. Gu Mingming then tested the waters. Maybe I can bring you away. Bring you to St. Nazaire to live with me and Elvis? In this case, are you willing? The female's eyelashes fluttered. Gu Mingming's words were like a pebble thrown into the calm lake in her heart, causing ripples to form. Chapter 800. That's right, given her current condition, even if she ate properly, she might not survive the winter, much less looking like she was begging for death. Elvis and I have 4 sons. It's a pity we didn't bring them along this time. Don't you want to meet them? Gu Mingming continued trying to persuade her. The female's lips curled up slightly, as if she was comforted. But she didn't say a word. Instead, she looked like she could be at ease. Gu Mingming held the female's hand gently. She had seen so many battles between mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law in television dramas, but never imagined that her first meeting with her mother-in-law would be to persuade her not to commit suicide. Perhaps her body was really weak. After speaking so much, she had already fallen asleep from exhaustion. Gu Mingming pulled up the beast's skin and covered her up before leaving the cave. Elvis seemed to have become impatient from waiting. Just as he was about to go berserk, he finally saw her coming out from inside and his tightly furrowed brows relaxed. He scooped her into his arms and hugged her tightly. Only then did he feel at ease. Peter looked into the cave with concern in his eyes. Even though he couldn't see the female from this angle. Gu Mingming said, "She said a lot and is very weak now. She has already fallen asleep." Peter was taken aback. He stared at Gu Mingming in disbelief for a long time. He said doubtfully, She spoke to you?" Gu Mingming nodded. Peter was so agitated that he almost cried. "She's willing to speak. It's good that she's willing to speak. She hasn't spoken for months. No matter what I do, she won't say a single word." Gu Mingming really didn't understand. Since Peter loved her so much, why did he do such cruel things to hurt her? What was his motive? "Lower your voice. She just fell asleep." Before Gu Mingming finished her sentence, Peter was already nodding and keeping his mouth shut, not daring to make a sound. Gu Mingming wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck and gestured for him to walk out. Peter wanted to ask more about the female, so he naturally followed. When they were far enough away, Gu Mengmeng asked Elvis to stop. She then frowned and sized Peter up. "What did she say to you?" Peter desperately wanted to know every word she said. Even if it was just a paraphrase, it would be a great comfort to him. Gu Mengmeng pursed her lips and did not speak. She just stared at Peter. Wabi said lazily, "I'm tired. I'll find a place to sleep. Wake me up when it's time to eat." Ian rolled his eyes at Gu Mengmeng with a face that looked like he was about to die. It was obvious that he was still holding a grudge against her for releasing her pressure outside and causing him to fall. Without saying a word, he left with Wabi. Leah sighed. Although he was also Gu Mengmeng's partner now, this was clearly an old matter of the Elvis family and it was not convenient for him to listen in. Hence, he kissed Gu Mengmeng's little face and said, "We haven't had lunch yet, I'll go prepare something delicious for you. Auntie looks very weak, so I'll prepare some good food for her." Gu Mengmeng understood everyone's consideration, so she nodded and returned a kiss on Lee's cheek. "Thank you." Leah lightly scratched Gu Mengmeng's little nose and smiled. "Silly girl, why are you thanking me?" Chapter 801. What truth? Peter asked. Gu Mengmeng looked at Peter's expression and knew that he had already guessed it. It was just that he was unwilling to admit or mention it. She said that she was the one who turned you into a stray beast. So you were once partners? I can see that you have deep feelings for her. She doesn't seem like an unreasonable female. Why did she make a fuss to remove the mating mark? Peter laughed bitterly. His gaze drifted towards the cave. He said in an obscure voice, "She really talked to you," Gu Mengmeng sighed. "If you really don't want to tell me, I won't force you. But let me tell you the truth. Given her current condition, she can't survive the coming winter. Even if I give you the kiss of the ocean, she won't be able to withstand the immense power of the kiss of the ocean in her current condition. If you force it on her, she will only explode and die prematurely." Peter frowned. He glared at Gu Mengmeng with a murderous look. Gu Mengmeng's words about that female dying had clearly hurt him. But this little female who said she would die was the only female who could make him speak in the past few months. Perhaps she really had a way? Suppressing his dissatisfaction, Peter slowly said, "I removed the mating mark, because she didn't like me from the start. No matter what I did, she would only hide from me. She would run away the moment she saw me. She didn't give me any chance at all. So I used force on her." Gu Mengmeng was dumbfounded. Did he really rape her? No wonder she wanted to remove the mating mark with him regardless of whether you lived or died. If it were her, she wouldn't have allowed a rapist's mark to remain on her body. "You don't have to look at me like that. I never felt that I did anything wrong." Peter lifted his head and continued, "Firstly, I was able to snatch her away from her partner and forcefully mate with her in a deserted place. This proves that her partner is too weak and can't protect her at all. She needs a strong partner to ensure her own safety. Secondly, if I mate with her, it will be a gamble with my own life. After I mate with her, her life will be my life. She will know that I will not harm her at all. She does not need to be afraid of me. As long as she is not afraid of me, she will slowly realize how good I am. I am confident that I can move her. Even if she cannot fall in love with me in the end, I am willing to stay by her side unloved for the rest of my life and protect her from all dangers. Even if I can only become food in the end, I am willing. But obviously, I lost. Even if I put my life in her hands, she was still unwilling to look at me. She was still afraid of me, still resisted me, still didn't believe that I wouldn't hurt her." Gu Mengmeng coldly interrupted Peter's words. "The facts prove that you have hurt her. A scumbag will always be a scumbag. No matter how much love you pretend to have, you can't change the fact that you tortured her for more than 10 years. I didn't." Peter denied agitatedly. Not to be outdone, Gu Mengmeng questioned him. "You didn't? You raped her and you still say you didn't?" "I just needed a chance to prove to her that I love her." Peter growled. Gu Mengmeng laughed coldly. "You forced her to do something she doesn't like just because you love her? Have you ever thought about how helpless, how humiliated, and how scared your so-called opportunity made her feel? You are in the process of hurting her to prove that she doesn't need to fear you? What a preposterous argument. Aside from the topic, a man used all his resources to buy a whole cart of bananas to confess to the girl he loved. The girl rejected him. Then, everyone started discussing and criticizing the girl for not knowing what was good for her. She had given up everything for you, yet you still rejected her. The girl felt very innocent and helpless. She had never asked a guy to do such things for her. Moreover, she didn't like bananas at all. So, Susu said that blindly giving up in love was meaningless. Unrestrained giving would only move one's heart and coerce one's lover. Learn to love and know how to give others what they want, not what you want to give them. Chapter 802. Peter clenched his fists and growled angrily, "Since that's the case, why doesn't she just kill me to vent her anger? If she hates me, she can just kill me. None of her partners can defeat you, how can she kill you?" Gu Mengmeng roared back, refusing to back down. Peter laughed coldly. "If she wants me dead, she just needs to say the word and I will personally dig open my own chest and crush my heart in front of her. As long as she can feel just a little bit of happiness for me, just a little bit." Gu Mengmeng was completely speechless. Where did the males in the beast world get their weird views on love from? They were practically twisted into instant noodles. But she didn't do it even once. How much does she hate me to use such a method to torture me? Peter seemed to have lost all his energy and fell to the ground. The wound on his leg split open and blood flowed out. But he continued as if he didn't feel anything. "Even though I became a stray beast, I still love her. No matter how many females I snatched, I never touched any of them. If it wasn't her, I would feel disgusted, so I went back to snatch her back. I thought that since I am already a stray beast, snatching females is the most normal thing to do. So what if I don't have a mating contract? I just want to keep her by my side. I want to torture her, I want to take revenge on her. But in the end, every time I see her, I lose all will. Every time she cries, my world is thrown into chaos. Everyone says that stray beasts are heartless, but why does my heart still hurt so much?" Gu Mengmeng frowned and asked, "Since that's the case, why did you still kill her partners and make her sad?" Peter looked up and stared at Gu Mengmeng in a daze for a moment. Suddenly he laughed. "She still thinks that I killed her partners? Even after so many years, she still thinks so. She still doesn't believe that I would not hurt her." Gu Mengmeng frowned and thought to herself, could it be a misunderstanding? But she clearly said that every time Peter left the house, a few marks on her body would disappear. Once or twice could be a coincidence, but wasn't it too far-fetched to claim that it was a coincidence every time? Peter sighed and said, "She refuses to talk to me now. She won't believe anything I say. I'll tell you the truth, and you help me persuade her, okay?" Gu Mengmeng did not directly agree, but said, "That depends on how real your truth is, and whether it is worth my help." Peter's face was full of sorrow. It was faint, but it didn't melt away. "After I snatched Natalie back, her other partners went crazy looking for me all over the world. Then they found this place. They contacted the other males who had their females snatched away and started a fight. But how could a bunch of fellows with no battle experience other than hunting compete with stray beasts? Every time they attack, I'm not there to kill. I'm there to save people. But they refused to listen to me, and I had to hide my identity from the other stray beasts. I really tried my best, but I couldn't save everyone every time. Like you said, I can't save someone who wants to die. Their attack back then was no different from suicide. I tried my best, I really tried my best. But in the end, not a single one of them was saved." Peter's expression was especially heavy, as if he had not forgotten the look in Natalie's eyes when she had wronged him and misunderstood him. Chapter 803. "Then why didn't you explain?" Gu Mingming asked. Peter looked like he had heard a joke and countered, "Explain? It was the first time she smiled at me and asked me not to leave in a coquettish manner. She was clearly trembling in fear, but she still snuggled into my arms, sobbing as she said she was afraid of the dark, that she needed me and wanted me to hug her. How should I explain? How should I push her away and tell her that I didn't kill her partners? She didn't need to please me like this. Even though I knew she was lying to me, I couldn't reject her. I couldn't say that I didn't need her. Damn it, I can't get rid of this greed. Gu Mingming's heart was clawed. Peter dug his hand into his hair and grabbed it, as if he wanted to tear his own head off. I don't want her partners to die more than anyone else. As long as they are alive, Natalie will continue to act coquettishly to me to protect them. Just for this lie, I will damn risk my life to keep her partners alive. But what could I do? Those two idiots thought that I was using them to threaten Natalie, so they charged towards the cliff. As they fell, they laughed and told me that I no longer had any bargaining chips to keep Natalie in captivity. I wanted so badly to grab them and dig out their brains to see what was in them. If they were all dead, all the more I can't let Natalie go. Apart from me, there's no one else around her who can prepare food for her. How can I let her go? Gu Mingming frowned and said, but she said you forced her to choose between her children and those two partners. Peter shook his head and said, when I forced her to choose, those two idiots were not dead yet. Her first and second partners were marked on her chest. I thought those two fellows were important enough to her for her to give up the child in her womb for them. After all, that child belonged to me, the person she hated to the core. At that time, I decided to abort the child, then let her go, because I knew that her partners would not give up on trying to save her. If those two also died in the end, she would break down. Gu Mingming instinctively looked at Elvis and pursed her lips in silence. She almost couldn't see her husband anymore. Was it an ancestral tradition for their family to want to kill their own son? Instinctively, she hugged Elvis's neck, as if he would disappear any time. Towards Gu Mingming's inexplicable uneasiness, Elvis's response was to kiss her little face gently and comfort her. Don't be afraid, I won't leave you. Gu Mingming nodded and pressed her face against Elvis's. Peter's eyes were filled with envy as he watched their little interaction. He turned his head and said, even if it was just once, if she could rely on me like this, we would not have ended up in this state today. Gu Mingming did not say anything because their entanglement was misplaced right from the start. No matter what reason they had, forcing a female to mate against her will was not worth forgiving. Peter continued, Natalie is willing to stay by my side for the sake of the child in her womb. Perhaps, this is the kindest and cruelest thing she has ever done to me. Chapter 804. Elvis was unbelievably calm. He wasn't affected by Peter's words at all. He just said coldly, it's not a question of whether I believe it or not, because I don't care at all. Peter chuckled and nodded. That's right. I don't care either. It doesn't matter whether you or your other brothers survive, as long as one survives. One survives? Gu Mingming clearly remembered Natalie saying that she gave birth to 6. She was so sad that she had never heard Elvis mention his brothers. Were they all dead? Peter gazed in the direction of the cave in a daze. Stray beasts should not have children. Stray beasts only capture females to satisfy their lust. Children? That's a disgrace. I don't care if I can inherit my bloodline. I was abandoned by the beast deity, what's there to inherit? But those are the children Natalie gave birth to for me. Possible? I still wish for them to exist. Since that's the case, why did you kill your own children and purposely use this information to agitate her? Gu Mingming couldn't understand. Was this the so-called love-hate relationship? Do you know how sorrowful Natalie looked when she mentioned those children? Sorrowful expression? Peter suddenly smiled, as if he was comforted. Looks like those children didn't die in vain. Gu Mingming clenched her fists. Even a vicious tiger wouldn't eat its cubs. How could this person before her be so comforted by the death of his own children? What did he mean by not dying in vain? Gu Mingming suddenly thought of something Elvis had said to her in the past. He said that it was worth it to use all the sufferings in the past to become strong enough to protect her. She said that it was fine if she was a little weaker. Her heart ached for the hardships he had suffered as a child. But he said, if he was a little weaker, he might not have the chance to stand before her. At that time, she thought he meant that she only liked the strong. If he wasn't strong enough, she wouldn't like him. But now, it seemed like she had misunderstood. He meant that if he was a little weaker, then one of the 5 dead children would be Elvis. Gu Mingming's heart ached at the thought of her own man almost dying in Peter's twisted love. She really wanted to slap him to death to prevent any future troubles. When all her partners died, she wanted to use death to leave me. She had already abandoned me once. How could I let her abandon me again? Furthermore, she is so beautiful. If she dies, she will definitely return to the embrace of the beast deity, while I am destined to be abandoned and fall into hell. Come to think of it, Natalie still trusted me. She trusted me in order to abandon me. She said that this child was the only gift she had given me. I loved her so much that I would definitely treat our child well. So, she can die without any worries. I can't let her have nothing to worry about. I can't. She can't give me the child and leave me forever. I won't allow it. Gu Mengmeng felt so suffocated that she did not even want to hear him continue. She knew how crazy males could be for love. Snake had used his own life to teach her a lesson. However, there was a difference between madness and distortion. Chapter 805. I know. In order for her to live, I continuously tortured our child, so that she would not have a shred of trust in me. Only then would she not dare to die. Even if she hates me, it doesn't matter. It's good enough that she can live. Peter was smiling, but his lips and eyes were tinged with bitterness. Since that's the case, why is she so determined to seek death now? Gu Mengmeng had always been a soft-hearted person, but she could not sympathize with Peter at all. A pitiful person must have a detestable side. She only wanted to protect Natalie's life now. Although Elvis had no impression of her at all, at least that female was willing to endure the torture for Elvis. Death was a form of release, but in order to protect her son, she chose to live in humiliation. Every day was difficult, but she still gritted her teeth and struggled to hold on. Elvis might not have seen or felt warmth, but that did not mean her motherly love did not exist. Peter shook his head. After Elvis escaped from here, Natalie made a deal with me. She would stay by my side obediently. In exchange, I would let Elvis go and never look for him again. Gu Mengmeng frowned. A thought suddenly flashed across her mind. She hurriedly asked, when did Natalie start her hunger strike? When the monsoon season was about to end. Peter replied. When the monsoon season was about to end, at that time, Gu Mengmeng lowered her eyes. During that period, did anyone special come by? Peter was taken aback. He seemed to have thought of something, but shook his head without saying a word. Gu Mengmeng laughed coldly. You still want to hide it from me now? It doesn't matter. If you don't want to say, so be it. With that, Gu Mengmeng hugged Elvis's neck and turned her face to the side. She ignored Peter. Her heart felt suffocated. Whether it was Peter or Natalie, there was a similarity in their words. They did not mention anything about what had happened to Elvis when he was young. Peter had used the simple word, torture, to cover up all the details. He was obviously trying to cover it up. Elvis, Peter, and Natalie were the only 3 survivors of that so-called torture. They stood on different sides and hated each other. But they had a tacit understanding to not mention anything about the past. What was he hiding? Elvis did not like Gu Mengmeng to be dragged into those unpleasant things. It was clearly the past. What was the point of bringing it up? What did the entanglement between Natalie and Peter have to do with him? What right did he have to involve his female? Displeasure. Deep anger was written all over Elvis's face. Leah should be back soon. Let's eat something first. Elvis didn't want Gu Mengmeng and Peter to stay in the same space anymore. Because of Peter's presence, the air was filled with the stench of blood, making one lose their appetite. With that, Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng and walked towards the outskirts of the territory. Leah had already started a fire outside and cooked the food until it was 80% done. He originally wanted to go in and call them when the fire was ready, but he didn't expect them to come out before the food was ready. Leah smiled and said, "It's almost done, we can eat in a while." Chapter 806. Gu Mingming relied on Elvis, and Elvis had always known this. But today, she was abnormally clingy. Even during mealtimes, she wanted Leah to feed her, and her little hand was still hanging around Elvis's neck, unwilling to let go for even a second. Elvis thought, perhaps it was because Peter's story made her feel bad? Frowning, he wiped her mouth that was stained from eating. "You have seen the person and the story is over. Let's go back. The children are still waiting." Elvis's heart ached at the slightest discomfort in Gu Mingming's heart. He could not forgive Peter for using those terrible things in the past to upset Gu Mingming. He had to settle this score sooner or later. But compared to venting his anger, it was more important to bring Gu Mingming away from this dark and broken place, and not let her continue to be affected. Gu Mingming shook her head and looked up at Elvis. Her lips were pressed into a straight line, and her eyes clearly showed that she had something on her mind, but she refused to open her mouth. Her expression made Elvis's heart ache and feel helpless. He looked up at Leah, gesturing for him to think of a solution. But Leah just shrugged, with a, "She's hanging in your arms, not even looking at me. What can I do?" expression. He took the pot that had been used for the meal and went to wash it. It was obvious that he wanted to stay out of this matter. Elvis frowned. He was willing to do anything for Gu Mingming. As long as it was for her good, he would do it. But he was not as good at controlling her emotions as Leah was. If she didn't speak, he was at his wit's end. "Xiaomeng." Elvis sighed softly and stroked her little head, asking, "What exactly are you thinking about? Tell me, won't you?" Gu Mingming still pursed her lips and refused to speak. She just hugged Elvis's neck and refused to let go. She rubbed her little face against the pit of Elvis's neck and breathed evenly and warmly on his neck. Elvis really had no way of dealing with Gu Mingming. He liked her coquettishness and dependence, and wished that she could grow on his body and never leave his side. But the prerequisite for all this was for her to be happy. Her troubled look made his heart wrench. He had already brought out the little wolf cub, but she still refused to return to Saint Nazaire. She didn't know what kind of magic potion the female had fed her back in the cave, but it only took a short while for her to become like this. He still preferred her when she rolled up her sleeves and said she wanted to pick a fight with someone. He gently cupped the back of her head and allowed her to act shamelessly in his arms. His voice was gentle and filled with indulgence and slight helplessness. "What should I do to make you happy? As long as you say it, I'll do it for you, okay?" Gu Mingming thought for a while before raising her head to look at Elvis. She said hesitantly, "I want to save Natalie. Will you help me?" Chapter 807. Gu Mingming was speechless. Why did Elvis sound like he was buying a pet for his wife in front of a pet shop? Also, what did he mean by there shouldn't be any males willing to mate with her? Was he blatantly trying to find a stepfather for himself? "Elvis, you sure have a big heart. I'll go ask Peter for her. If he doesn't give it to me, I'll destroy him. It'll be considered as getting rid of a pest for the people." As Elvis said that, he tried to release Gu Mingming from his arms, but she refused to let go of his neck. He didn't dare to pull her away and could only allow her to cling on to him. Then, he turned around and walked towards Peter, saying, "Will you not be sad if I bring Natalie back to you?" Gu Mingming shook her head. Elvis stopped in his tracks and looked at Gu Mingming in a daze. Gu Mingming said softly, "I am not sad because of Natalie and Peter. It is because of you." A chill ran down Elvis's spine. He was a little flustered but did not know what to do. He blurted out, "Xiaomeng, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Don't be angry. Tell me, what did I do to upset you? I'll change right away, okay?" Gu Mingming cupped Elvis's face and directly kissed his lips. After a long while, Gu Mingming finally released Elvis with a red face. "Don't apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. I just feel hurt." Elvis froze on the spot, a warm feeling in his heart. This was the first time Meng Meng took the initiative to kiss him. His Xiao Meng took the initiative to kiss him. I am already the happiest person in this world, why do you still feel heartache for me? Elvis's lips curled upwards uncontrollably, his blue eyes filled with happiness. Gu Mengmeng wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck and hugged him tightly. She whispered into his ear, "Not enough, not enough. I want you to be even happier. I want to make up for what I lost when I was young." Elvis laughed at her words. He pinched her armpits and pulled her away. He raised her up to his eyes and stared into her eyes. "So you are in a bad mood because of what happened to me when I was young?" Gu Mingming's eyes were filled with tears. Gu Mingming nodded, her eyes watery. After inheriting Snake's memories, she thought that her heart was already hard enough and her emotions were numb enough. There was nothing more tragic that could move her. But she was wrong. Her strength and numbness were so fragile when she met the person she valued. The moment she thought of how Elvis had suffered unspeakable pain in a place unknown to her, she felt her chest tighten and her breathing became uneven. The scariest thing was not what exactly happened to Elvis back then, but the fact that the entire world was hiding it from her, not letting her know what Elvis had experienced back then. This made her imagination grow even more limitless, and she was almost driven crazy by her own imagination. "Is this also the reason you want to save Natalie?" Elvis asked. Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, "I want her to live, so that she can have the chance to make up for the happiness you missed in your childhood." Elvis pinched Gu Mengmeng's face and said, "Silly girl, what are you thinking about? No matter when, the only one who can give me happiness is you. Your smiling face is the salvation that pulled me out of hell. Other than you, no one can make me happy." Chapter 808. Elvis lowered his head and kissed Gu Mingming's collarbone. His voice was low and hoarse, his gaze as deep as the ocean. "No matter what you want to do, I will support you. But you have to promise me that you will not be sad. If you are sad, my heart will shatter into pieces. It will hurt a lot." Gu Mingming returned a kiss on Elvis's forehead. Her gaze was peaceful and gentle. Her voice was light as a feather as it brushed against Elvis's heart. "As long as all of you are well, nothing can make me sad." Elvis knew that the all of you Gu Mingmeng was referring to included him, Leah and the 4 little ones. It could even include Sandy, Oriton, Ian, Wabi and everyone else she cared about. Actually, it was not an easy task to make everyone well. After all, males were in a battle and their lives were uncertain. Snake was the only one in the entire beast world who could live to the extent that he did. But for Gu Mengmeng, Elvis was willing to put all his weight on himself to protect everyone she cared about. As long as she was well. Gu Mengmeng leaned against Elvis's chest. Her gaze was filled with faint heartache. "Hubby, can you tell me about your childhood? I am almost going crazy from my imagination." Halfway through her sentence, Gu Mengmeng suddenly shut her mouth and retorted, "If mentioning those memories will make you feel pain again, it's fine if you don't tell me. I don't really want to know." Elvis rubbed Gu Mingming's head and smiled. "Silly girl, didn't I tell you before? Although those past times were not beautiful, they allowed me to become a stronger version of myself. I used them to meet you. So, as the price I should pay for meeting you, I still feel that it is too little. Actually, it can be more painful." Gu Mingmeng was amused by Elvis's serious tone. Her doe-like eyes shone with a sweet light as she said, "No wonder our sons always say that you and Leah are abnormal. Who would wish for more pain?" Elvis was amused by Elvis's serious tone. Elvis pinched Gu Mingming's little chin and kissed her alluring lips. "As long as I can meet you, I am willing to pay any price. I guess I probably saved the Milky Way in my previous life. That's why I can meet such good people like you and Leah." Elvis did not know what the Milky Way was, but, "If I can meet you by saving the Milky Way galaxy, then in this life, Leah and I will save him. In the next life, you are not allowed to run." Gu Mingmeng smiled and nodded. "Yeah, I won't run. I'll just stand there and wait for you." Seeing that Gu Mengmeng finally smiled, Elvis's heart softened and he said, "I'll bring you to see my childhood so that you don't have to think too much." "Really?" Gu Mengmeng's eyes lit up. Elvis nodded as a reply. Gu Mengmeng gave Elvis a peck on his face happily, and the suffocating breath in her heart was slowly released. She knew that Elvis's past was not good, but it was precisely because of this that she wanted to understand and participate in it. No matter what terrible scars there were in his past, she wanted to use warmth and love to cover those sorrows. Chapter 809. After walking for a long time, Elvis stopped at a spacious area. His gaze was calm and emotionless. He pointed at the 3 huge pits in front of him and said, "I was brought away by Peter after 1 month. This was the first place they went to." Gu Mengmeng followed Elvis's gaze and looked at the 3 pits in front of her. She was a little confused. The diameter of the pit was about 1.8 to 2 meters. Stretching her neck and peering in, the depth was about 1.5 to 1.7 meters. The pit was empty. There was nothing in it. Elvis bent his knees and sat beside the pit. He placed Gu Mengmeng on his thighs and pointed to the pit in the middle. 6 brothers, 2 to a pit. At first, they threw down the leftover parts and organs. Although the quality was not good, it was at least enough for us to fill our stomachs. But, as we grew older, the amount of food didn't increase. Instead, it decreased unknowingly. Until 3 months later, no one threw food into the pit for us anymore. At first, we didn't know what was going on. We even used all our strength to jump up, hoping that someone would see us and throw food down. But there was nothing. Other than the scorching sun, the wind, and the rain, nothing else happened. Then, we heard our brothers' cries and wails from the pit next door, and the brothers I was locked in with started to look at each other as if we were food. Finally, the 2 brothers who used to hug each other for warmth finally bared their fangs and claws at each other. Then I won, he became my food, and I became a monster. Gu Mengmeng's heart clenched tightly. Her hands started trembling uncontrollably. How perverted was Peter? How could he think of such a perverted way to torture his own sons? To think that he had just said that regardless of whether Elvis believed it or not, he was still alive because he had tried his best. T. Which father would watch his own sons kill each other and treat his own brothers as food? Damn pervert. Damn pervert. Elvis held Gu Mengmeng's trembling hands gently and kissed them. Silly girl, I am not telling you all this to make you afraid. Gu Mengmeng didn't say anything. She just looked at Elvis with heartache. But Elvis smiled very gently and said, "Although I feel very blissful to make you feel sorry for me. But don't be too distressed, I can't bear to do it." Gu Mengmeng took the initiative to approach Elvis's lips and kissed them, using her silent gentleness to soothe Elvis's old wounds. Or perhaps she was the one who needed comfort, right? Elvis enjoyed Gu Mengmeng's kiss, which made him very happy. Even those unbearable memories in the past did not have any special feelings anymore. In front of her gentleness, the humiliation that had once crossed his heart was like dust. It existed, but it did not pose any obstacle. Gu Mengmeng hugged Elvis's waist with her little hands and pressed her face against his chest. She looked at the huge pit calmly, and her mind was filled with Elvis's helpless look when he was young. Her voice became even softer and hoarser. What happened after that? Chapter 810. Gu Mengmeng looked up, her eyes filled with anticipation. Elvis could not do anything to her. He scratched her little nose and said, "You can listen to the story, but you can't be upset. All that pain accumulated to meet you. If you pity me, I will become very pitiful." Gu Mengmeng pursed her lips and nodded. Elvis then continued, "When there was only 1 wolf left in each of the 3 pits, someone finally approached this pit again. Unfortunately, they were not here to feed us, but to fill the pit. Rocks were continuously thrown down from the top of the pit, smashing onto us, but we could not resist. The space we could move around was compressed by the rocks, while the pit entrance was piled higher and higher by the rocks. The narrow and cramped space made us more and more irritable and uneasy. Our claws dug out deep grooves on the stone walls of the pit, until one day, the huge rocks piled up at the pit entrance suddenly collapsed. We had to avoid the huge rocks in the cramped space, and quickly make judgments, before jumping out of the pit by stepping on rocks one after another. Out of the 3 pits, only 2 wolves came out alive. The other one was buried under a huge rock at the bottom of the pit, smashed into meat paste. And all of this was not the end, but the beginning. Elvis's gaze wandered around and he pointed at an empty space outside the 3 pits, saying, "The other wolf that escaped from the pit and I look at each other with hatred. In each other's eyes, we are just food." Brotherly kinship and whatnot at that time had long disappeared. His injuries from the rocks were more serious than mine, so I was the one who survived in the end. In the 10 over years before I met you, I thought more than once, if I had known earlier, I would not have resisted and let him eat me up. This disgusting and boring life, it was fine to give it to him. But now, I'm really glad that I had that crazy desire to live, lucky that I survived, no matter how dirty and unbearable the process was. If it was for you, it was worth it. Gu Mingming's hands that were hugging Elvis were trembling. She pursed her lips and did not say a word. Elvis hooked Gu Mingming's chin, his gaze as deep as the sea of stars, so deep that it made one sink in. "You promised, you are not allowed to pity me." Gu Mingming shook her head, smiled and said in the most gentle voice, "I'm just very touched, so to meet me, you did such a brave thing." "Brave? Huh? You can always think of some words to beautify those ugly things, but I like them very much." Elvis kissed Gu Mingming's lips. It was a light and sweet kiss, without any lust, only full of love and tenderness. Elvis looked at Gu Mingming's gaze that signaled for him to continue and felt rather helpless. He really did not feel that there was anything to talk about these past events. It was not like they were heroic deeds. But he couldn't deny that no matter how insignificant these things were, after sharing them with her, he had never felt so relaxed before. It was as if the rubbish in his memories was being poured out bit by bit with every word he said. His whole heart brightened up. Smiling, Elvis tried his best to use a relaxed tone to talk about the cruel past. "My eyes were bloodshot from killing and I was thrown into the wolf's den. At that time I seemed to be at the age of Jiaoyu and the rest. Hunger, pain, and fear were all I had at that time." Out of topic. Today is White Valentine. Happy White Valentine's Day, babies. Remember to buy some chocolates in return for the flowers I received last month. If there's a boy you like, it's time to confess then. Today's update ended. Chapter 8:11. It was either fight or die. I had no other way out. Elvis rested his chin lightly on Gu Mingming's head. Countless details of the fight, biting, bleeding and escaping from death flashed past his mind. He only said one conclusion. That pack of wolves ended up as my food. And when I came out of the wolf cave, I had just turned 1 year old and had just transformed into a first-level beast. Gu Mingming could almost imagine what Elvis must have looked like after crawling out of the wolf cave. He must have been like the Azura who had returned from hell, crushing everyone's hopes and bearing the burden of destruction like Satan, descending upon every enemy. "Thank you for being alive." Gu Mingming pressed her face against Elvis's chest and listened to his heartbeat. She was not afraid, only glad that he had not been defeated in that kind of suffering and had waited until she met him. If she had missed him, how regretful would her life be? "Silly girl, why are you thanking me?" Elvis lifted Gu Mingming's little face and kissed her brow. His gaze was filled with an inexplicable sincerity, as if he was not only looking at his own female, but also at the only light in his life. "It was you who brought me out of that darkness and malevolence. If I had not met you, I would probably still be killing out of boredom, wasting away my life and waiting for death to descend upon me. You were the one who pulled me out from the abyss of despair. Why are you thanking me now?" Gu Mingming's heart pounded. She did not retort but just smiled. We were both groping our way along the lonely and helpless path. Then, we were lucky enough to meet each other. We lit up the hope in each other's eyes and lit up our lives together. We are a family that will always be together. So, we don't have to say thank you to each other, right? Elvis's heart melted into water at Gu Mingming's words. He kissed the side of Gu Mingming's face, feeling speechless sweetness. Hubby. Gu Mingming hesitated for a moment before saying, I feel that I cannot forgive Peter. Then I will kill him. Elvis's reply was calm and certain, without the slightest bit of hesitation. It was as if Gu Mingming had only asked him to pluck a wildflower and he had said, okay. Gu Mingming shook her head. That's not what I meant. Elvis glanced sideways at Gu Mingming and asked with a gentle gaze. Gu Mingming said, although Natalie and Peter are your parents, I don't want to stand on the moral high ground and demand that you must forgive them. Even I want to hack Peter into 1,000 pieces to vent my anger after hearing about your childhood experiences, not to mention you, who had personally experienced it all. Only when a knife cut into his own flesh would he know how painful the bloody wound was. So, no matter what your decision is, I will support you unconditionally, because only you have the right to decide whether to forgive or not. But I want to tell you what I know. I'll let you make a decision that you won't regret while knowing the truth as much as possible, okay? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.